Don't miss the awesome Naruto stories my sister creates. Her last channel was hacked, so to stay in the loop, please subscribe to her new channel. It would mean a lot to her, and you won't regret it. Hello to all lovers of lemon scenes. I invite you all to my boosty so you can watch your favorite Naruto What If stories in complete comfort. A subscription to Naruto Lemon, the first video with a full lemon, is already on my boosty channel. Dare! Konoha. The night, the silence of which is interrupted only by the occasional wind. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the village. The fox, destroying houses, demolished everything in its path. A flash of light, a wild roar of a beast, a crying baby. Everything is mixed into one incomprehensible heap. The third Hokage approached. Sarutobi Hiruzen sees a small lump, over which Minato and Kushina are standing. Someday you'll be a hero, Naruko. And with these words, Minato and his wife leave the human world forever. 7 years later. A pretty blonde girl walked along the road. Two tails developed in the wind. Eyes, the color of the sky, were directed forward. That's her. Someone shouted, pointing a finger at the girl. Beat her! Echoed a male bass voice. And rushed. The blonde took off, but the drunken shinobi were faster. Blow after blow rained down on the blue-eyed woman. For what? Only the girl uttered, sobbing. The blows rained down, as it seemed to her, an eternity. Let her go, icy tone, this is an order. The shinobi who turned around realized that arguing is more expensive for themselves, so they quickly left. Are you okay? A velvety soothing voice. Dee-dee-dee-ah, the sobs of the girl did not stop. Get up, let's go to the Hokage-sama. By the way, I'm Itachi, the brunette introduced himself, and you? And then Naruko, the blue-eyed woman said, still shaking in her voice, standing up. The guys walked to the residence in complete silence, which was only occasionally interrupted by the singing of birds. Knocking on the door leading to the Hokage's office, the two heard, "Come in." Entering the office, the girl noticed that it was quite spacious, and quite comfortable. Hokage-sama, I want to join the ANBU, the girl suddenly blurted out even for herself. Everyone present, namely Sarutobi and Itachi, hatched on her. Well, if that's what you want, the third one said thoughtfully, then please. Just remember, the training there is brutal. I won't let you down, the girl replied, completely forgetting about the Uchiha, but he made himself felt. Hokage-sama, isn't she too small to serve in the ANBU? Itachi asked, slightly confused. She will be trained, taught techniques, and then, perhaps, she will do it, the old man replied. Okay, it's still not for me to decide. With these words, the brunette headed out of the office of the third, and Naruko followed him. Yes, Naruko. Tomorrow at 7 in the morning at the 10th training ground. Hey! The blonde yelled as the door closed. Hiruzen drawled, if Kushina knew, she would have torn me to shreds. Anyway. Let's see what happens. 5 years later. Naruko's POV. For the past 5 years, I've been doing ANBU missions. Here I was welcomed cordially, as they say, I became my own person. I was paired with Itachi, referred to as Raven. They called me the Fox. During this time, I managed to learn about the nine-tailed fox, because of which, in fact, they considered me a monster, and therefore they beat me. Even though I've only been to him once, I really liked him. Although I doubt it's mutual. However, despite the past opinion of others, I never considered it bad. For me, he was my first true friend. From him I learned about my parents, as well as about some of my abilities. I also have a huge supply of chakra. Some shinobi treat me with a kind of respect, not like before. I was just doing missions. They didn't consider me a hero, and there was nothing for it but respect, albeit a little, but they did. I often visit Itachi. He has a mother and father, and even a younger brother, my age, while I have no relatives. Although, if you look from the other side, Itachi's parents take me for their daughter. Mikoto-san is a wonderful cook and easy to talk to, Fugaku-san is good at techniques and is also the head of the police, but Sasuke. He doesn't show himself in any way, so I can't say for sure. This has been the case until recently, and Sasuke. He doesn't show himself in any way, so I can't say for sure. This has been the case until recently. And Sasuke. He doesn't show himself in any way, so I can't say for sure. This has been the case until recently. End of POV. Naruko. Walking along the corridor with her partner, the blonde was thinking about a new mission, for which they go to the third old man. Knocking on the door, and hearing the usual, "Come in," the blue-eyed woman pushed the door, after which she found herself in the Hokage's office. The room, as always, met with its hospitality and comfort. A third was sitting at a table littered with a pile of papers, slowly sipping his pipe, but when he saw those who had come, he sat up straight, put down the smoking object and became a little sad. "Ah, Naruko, Itachi, it's you. Come on in," Sarutobi said in a slightly hoarse voice. "So, I have some not very good news for you. Naruko, you should go to the academy and study with the rest of the kids." But Hokage-sama, the blonde wanted to object. "Leave. Objections are not accepted, this is an order," the Hokage said in a firm voice. The girl's mood vanished overnight. "Yes," Naruko replied in a sour and dead voice, "only I have a request," the fox drawled. "What is it?" The old man seemed to be interested. "I'll pretend to be a boy, and no one will have to know my real gender. Even teachers," the blue-eyed woman put forward her condition. "But why do you?" But seeing the eloquent look of the blonde, Hiruzen stopped short. "Okay, I agree." With these words of the third, the girl left the office. POV. Naruko. I slowly walked through the corridors of the academy. It was so unusual to feel like a student of this institution. And here is the door to the audience I need. If I'm not mistaken, then our class teacher. Yumino Iruko. Well, let's have some fun. Speaking of me, as a student of the academy. Rather, as a student. I'm blonde, with buzz-cut hair, wearing a red, slightly baggy suit that hides a girlish figure, blue ninja sandals and weapon pouches. There are also glasses of students of the academy on the forehead. I knock on the classroom, after which I hear a muffled "enter." Came in. All students are quiet. This is your new classmate. I am Yumino Iruko, the teacher introduced himself. Please introduce yourself to the class. I'm Namikaze Naruto, I love ramen and dream of becoming Hokage. I glanced around the class. Sasuke caught my eye. I know him personally, but only he does not know that I am me, and, for sure, he mistook me for some boy. To be more precise, we are familiar with him at the "hello bye" level. A girl also caught my eye, with unnaturally pink hair and bright green eyes and a wide forehead. Well, the last person I noticed was Hinata Hugo. We got along with her after they stopped despising me. Only then was I able to go out into the street without the fear that I might be beaten. That very day we met with Hinata. Briefly about her, she is a pretty brunette with short hair and violet eyes. With a kind heart and gentle nature. Sit at any free desk, Iruko said, after which I went to Hinata's desk. By the way, she was one of 3 people who knew about my secret. Yumino started the lesson. The hours passed slowly, and I began to fall asleep. After all, we went through all this in the umbu, and even more. As soon as I fell asleep, a piece of chalk flew into my head. Wow, who put themselves on the suicide list? Ah, it's Naruko. Okay, forgive him. What does he say there? Ah, he asked a question. Well, now we will shine with our knowledge. After answering the question even more than necessary, I sat back at my desk, leaving Yumino and the entire class except for Hina with their mouths open in surprise. After that, the class teacher no longer bothered me, and I was able to sleep. At recess, Hinata woke me up. Naruto-kun, are you going to the dining room? Yes, Naruto-kun. I asked Hinata to call me like a man so that the secret would not be revealed. Yes, of course, I said in a hoarse, boyish voice. It was unusual, but there was nothing to be done. Oh, the newcomer has already made acquaintances. Yes, and with whom? With a modest class, and who is there so arrogant? Ah, it's pink-haired. This, to put it mildly, is none of your business. The large-browed one from such an answer grimaced such a face that I would not even have dreamed of in terrible dreams. Do you know who you run into? Sakura hissed angrily. Let me think. With a slight pause, I said, at the crazy pink-haired fool. I looked at her, as they say, down. Well, hold on. She raised her small fist for a blow, after which it flew into my face, and the clone evaporated with a pop. The life-saving bell rang and I was able to safely enter the classroom. So kids, enough theory for today. Let's move on to practice. With these words, Yumino stood up. Let's go outside. The whole class tore their asses off the chairs and headed outside, and I trudged at the very end with Hinata. Out on the street, we went to the wooden poles. So, today we will throw shurikens. Sasuke, show me how it's done, the crowd of girls squealed. Everyone except Hinata. Sasuke threw shurikens. 7 out of 10. I'll tell Itachi that he didn't train his brother well. Something is bad. It seems that I said the last phrase aloud, because of which most of those present looked at me. Since you are so smart and talented, throw shurikens yourself just as cool. Well, apparently, this pink-haired one is completely optional. Well, let him look and envy. As you wish. I took out 10 shurikens, 5 in each hand. Closing my eyes, I threw them away. Everyone hit the target. His eyes fell on Sakura. She bulged her eyes so expressively that I felt uneasy, envy silently. Why? But I said this in vain. Steam came out of the big-browed ears. So, that's enough, Naruko interrupted us. Well, since you are so talented, then fight Sasuke. I will not beat a weakling, and it was he who called me a weakling. What, chickened out, baby? Oh yes, I must have hit him to the quick. Come on, repeat. His face turned red with anger. So you're also deaf, I continued, adding fuel to the fire. Well, hold on. With these words, he flew at me, creating clones along the way. Kato, fire style, a large fireball. Too slow. Before he released the fireball, I closed the seal, and he was thrown into the tree by air with such force that if he weren't a shinobi, or rather his likeness, then all his bones would have been broken long ago. But he quickly jumped to his feet and threw a kunai at me, which I fought off. The piece of iron flew off unsuccessfully. At least for Sasuke, hitting him in the leg. Hey, the brunette yelled. This was enough for the girls to rush to him with the whole camp. What did you do? You hurt him. Oh, how clever we are. Pink-haired, you are extremely smart. Just take him to the medical center and that's it. After these words I moved away from this turmoil, because I had not the slightest desire to look at the sobbing, ready to cry, class star. Chkala I from a high bell tower on who he is, what problems he has and everything like that. The rules have not been set. Judging by that, I would have killed him in one attack, but that would have been too brutal, so let's not delve into this topic and return to the present time. So kids, that's enough for today. Everyone go home. With these words, Yumino finally considered it necessary to escort Sasuke to the medical center. I, having remained in order to be a little bit alone, lay down on the grass and looked at the sky. It was wonderful. Lush white clouds slowly crawled across the sky, giving a feeling of lightness. But I didn't sit like that for long, deciding that it was time for me to go. I walked down the hallway to the exit. But my instinct said, "Stay here, it's dangerous there." Walking down the corridor, I came across girls. "You will regret what you did to Sasuke." After these words, all three of them, namely Sakura, Ino and some other girl, attacked me. The pink-haired one landed the first blow, and, as expected, she missed. Then the girls hit with all their might, but they never hit, and then suddenly Ino grabs a kunai and plunges it into my chest. The clone with cotton disappeared, and at that time I was walking calmly home through the village. I initially slipped a clone on them so that they thought it was me real, and at that time I walked along the ceiling. These fools were so engrossed in my beating that they did not notice me. I was walking towards the house, but deciding to have a snack, I went to Ichiraku. It smelled delicious as always. "Double with pork, please." Damn, what a desire to go back to your old life, do ANBU missions, and not go to this academy, to see Itachi's face and the masks of the Anbushniks, not the faces of my wild classmates. After eating all the ramen, I left this diner and headed home. "I'm at home," out of inertia escaped me. Remembering that no one was waiting for me at home, I became visibly sad. Suddenly, Itachi appeared in front of me. Urgent message, Konoha was attacked. At the thought of the attack, my heart made a triple somersault forward. "Don't be afraid, everything will be fine," the brunette said, ruffling my hair and disappeared. I quickly took out my ANBU suit and mask and put everything on, braiding my hair into 2 high ponytails. Having folded the seal, I vanished into thin air and appeared at the academy. Once inside, I went to our office. Some had extra classes, so they were still here. Running into the classroom, I saw Hinata, Sakura, Ino, Kiba, Shikamaru, Chuji, Shino, Sasuke and Naruko. We were attacked. An urgent evacuation is required. At my words, the ceiling began to collapse. I, not seeing any other way, folded the seal, after which pieces of the ceiling hung in the air, and "Now we urgently run." Everyone immediately jumped up and rushed out of the building. On the way to the shelter we met many wounded. A clone ran up to each of them, who tried to heal the fighters as quickly as possible. We almost made it to the shelter without incident, but we were not destined to just walk to safety. Literally out of nowhere, a giant snake appeared and rushed at us. Jumping up high, I smashed her with my fist with all my might, using the cherry blossom punch technique, thereby knocking her out. "Just a little more. Let's go." With these words we set off. Having reached the shelter, I handed over part of my class to the Jonin, and I myself ran to the rescue of my comrades from the Umbu. And then I met him. Flashes, blows, screams. All this merged into one big boom. I remember only the ball of the tailed one, flying into the snake Sannin. After all, everything is in a fog. Fainting. End of POV Naruko. A day at the Konoha hospital was a normal day-to-day life. Not a single patient with serious injuries was reported, which, in fact, was certainly pleased with the entire medical staff. No one was in a hurry, did not tense up, but all because yesterday they brought all the seriously wounded after the attack on Konoha, and yesterday the whole hospital stood on their ears in order to raise all the wounded to their feet. Today was an ordinary day, but considering that yesterday all the wounded were admitted, today there was no need to strain a lot. Naruko's POV. I woke up in a pure white room with few facilities. The most ordinary lamp, a bedside table, a bed and a window overlooking the street, where people were constantly roaming about. By the way, both the bed and the bedside table, which was at the foot of the bed on the left side, and the window frame, which was to the right of the bed, were all white. This color began to strain, and rippled in the eyes. Brrr, I shook my head. well, a thrashing. What happened anyway? The blonde asked herself a question, after which she began to think about it. Flashback. It was an ordinary evening in the village, a beautiful sunset, and, as they say, nothing foreshadowed trouble. Nothing. Suddenly, there was a loud rumble, and a vile snake crawled into the village, the skin of which already sagged and did not seem blue, but looked as if this grey-brown crimson skin had been pulled off the snake for more than one day. In addition, the snake was with a hood, which depicted the sign of infinity. But that's not all. Among other things, the summoned animal had 3 heads. Following the monster, snakes crawled much smaller than the first, but they were clearly taller than an ordinary person. Small snakes with poisonous red eyes instantly spread through the village, while the 3-headed one began to destroy everything in its path. While the Konoha ninja were distracted by the animals, the serpentine Sannin slipped in unnoticed due to the commotion of his own making. His goals were not known to anyone except himself, and possibly his charge, Yakushi Kabuto. While the residents were evacuating to avoid getting hurt by the battle, Orochimaru was heading directly towards the Hokage's residence, and there was no doubt about it. Whether he wanted to kill the 3rd one, or get something more worthwhile, or maybe someone more worthy, no one knew, and is unlikely to find out. The Leaf Ninja fought against their own kind, just out of sound. These were sometimes worthy fights, but sometimes not. But despite how good a Konoha ninja was, there were many more minions from Orochimaru's side. And no wonder, most of the Chunin and Jonin were absent due to the large number of urgent missions. Most of the ANBU were also not in the village at the time of the attack. And it was during the weakening of the village's defenses that Orochimaru decided to attack, and did not lose. He correctly calculated the time and place, but he clearly did not take into account one snake. It never occurred to him that Konoha's Jinchuriki would stand up to protect the village, and not just stand up, but will protect her with knowledge of his business, like a shinobi. He had no idea that the bearer of the 9 tails was an Umbu, which was certainly strange for a child so young. Sannin thought that only Tsunade and Jiraiya were equal in strength to him, and even then together, but by no means alone, and Sarutobi-sensei. He did not think that even the tailed ones with their incredible reserves of chakra could be stronger than him. He is also not small. But if the Jinchuriki is good, yes, what a good thing there is, excellently trained, then he will have to sweat. And so it happened. Or rather, not quite so. Here's how it was. Orochimaru ran towards the residence to meet his sensei as soon as possible and rub it in with him face to face. He counted on the fact that his subordinates would distract all the warriors of the Leaf and no one would meet him on the way. Oh, if only he knew how deluded he was, he would never have come to this thrice-cursed Konoha. Having run through a bunch of blockages of stones, destroyed houses and all sorts of other filth, not excluding dead shinobi, Orochimaru saw long hair not far from him, clearly belonging to a blonde. However, he soon saw her in her entirety, but it didn't make him feel any better. As already mentioned, a blonde was approaching him, obviously not with friendly intentions. Her hair was braided into 2 high ponytails and they reached her waist, the mask of a fox flaunted on her face, because of which it was impossible to see either her eyes, or her face shape, or her lips, or any other part of the child's face. The serpent lowered his eyes. The girl was wearing the standard Umbu uniform. Even lower on the girl were leggings, on top of which a bag with black weapons was fastened. But it was clearly something different from the usual one worn by both ordinary shinobi and Umbu. The secret was simple. There were more departments in this bag and it was much easier to get the weapons you needed from there. The blonde did this simple little thing herself, deciding to distinguish herself from her friends in some way. Even lower on the girl were high boots with a tiny heel and a clasp on the inside of the lower leg. Boots were closed, therefore the Sannin could not see the girl's neatly manicured nails. She was not tall, but she was not a dwarf either. Based on this criterion, the snake gave the girl no more than 13 years. Only now the stranger did not want to look at such an unpleasant person to her, which is why something orange immediately began to accumulate around her. It didn't take long for Orochimaru to determine that this something was chakra. Feeling her strength, he quickly came to the conclusion that the girl was a Jinchuriki, and he wanted to retreat so as not to waste time, but at one moment something clicked in his head. And he was suddenly wedged, and he decided to play the game, kill or at least disable the girl. Without thinking twice, he took off and rushed to the blonde, but given that her speed increased significantly, she slipped away without any problems. Meanwhile, the Nine Tails were gaining more and more control over poor Naruko. The girl was already no longer aware of what was happening, when suddenly the fox stepped back, as if giving the blonde a chance to defeat this asshole herself. She didn't have to repeat it twice, immediately waking up and realizing the importance of the situation, still using the fox's chakra, only with one tail, the girl rushed to Sannin, and, not reaching quite a drop to hit him, evaporated. No matter how hard the Sannin tried to feel where the blow would come from, he could not predict this, and even more so put a block, because of which, in fact, he was thrown back by a powerful blow from Uzumaki. Suddenly, the girl's legs buckled and she began to fall, but pulling herself together, she regained her former mind, only she could not do anything with the fall. She fell on her face into the ground, causing her mask to crack, and when that she fell, rose, then her shield on her face broke into several parts and the snake opened up a view of the gentle childish face of the blonde. Only now it was gentle for a short time, in a minute her expression changed from sweet to angry, and an unkind ice light danced in her eyes, from the look at which even Sannin became uneasy. Orochimaru decided to get it over with as soon as possible, but it turned out that he even thought slower than Uzumaki. She, in turn, without thinking twice, created a tailed bomb near the mouth, as all Bijou do, and launched the ball directly into the snake. He, while thinking about his plan, could not keep track of all the movements of the blonde, and obviously did not have time to react to the blow. The chakra ball was so powerful that when the smoke dissipated, Naruko saw the following scene: the unconscious body of an unpleasant person was lying on the ground, where something was clearly missing. Taking a closer look, Naruko realized that from where the leg should go, blood was pouring, and there was no trace of any leg there. Realizing that the black-haired one no longer carries a threat, the girl fell to the ground unconscious. End flashback. Eureka! The blonde exclaimed, glad that she remembered at least something. A young nurse came running to her scream. Something happened, the brown-haired woman asked worriedly, but with a drop of anger. No. Sorry, Uzumaki said calmly, and even quietly to herself. She loves to scream. Well, the anger in the nurse's voice faded, and friendliness came in its place. Since you are in perfect order, then we can discharge you. Uraea, the nurse almost knocked steam out of his ears. Oh, sorry, I'm silent. We can write you out, but not before tomorrow. You need to rehabilitate a little more, and then you can walk again and live happily ever after. The nurse's tone did not change, but the eyes that had been looking at the girl until that moment moved to the window. Is something wrong? The blonde decided to ask, but after receiving a negative answer, she calmed down, and after the nurse left, the girl decided to start implementing the plan. Of course, there was not much left until tomorrow, but the blonde could not escape from the hospital to her favorite noodle shop. As soon as she wanted to start implementing the plan, when suddenly the window opened, and an ashy-haired young man who was at least 2 times older than Naruko entered the room, along with fresh air. Hospity, Kakashi, don't scare me like that. The blonde realized that her plan went down the drain, which could not please. Hello to you too. Look, I'm here on a rather important matter. On a relatively important matter. Well, this is not particularly important. The word important and its forms constantly flashed in his speech, which soon pissed off the blonde. Well, don't delay, speak already. In her thoughts, Uzumaki was already killing Hatake for his slow and tedious speech. The words in which he, as luck would have it, stretched out. In short, as you know, you will be divided into teams and, he was again interrupted by an impatient blue-eyed. Well, you? What are you pulling? Speak NNN, Kakashi NNNN. Well, you will go under my wing. In general, you will be under my command. Seeing the displeased face of the interlocutor, he hastened to add, well, there are pluses in this too. You know me better than anyone, and therefore you will be able to find out a lot in advance, although it will not be entirely fair. Oh, yes, and I can also be late, like some, and in this she was right. Hatake was distinguished by his lack of punctuality. Only you warn me in advance how much you will be late. Seeing a nod from the man, the girl smiled. Well, that's good. After a little dialogue between the two, Hatake disappeared, leaving the girl alone with her plans. The girl stretched. Again. These white walls, already rather bored, this bedside table, this closet, tired, and she sits here for 3 hours at the most, not counting the time that she spent here passed out. But despite such a short time, she was already tired of the company of the above walls and furniture. The curtains on the windows moved slightly, touched by a slight breeze. People still flitted under the windows of the hospital. The nurses, as before, circled over the seriously wounded, and Naruko was still sad, not taking her eyes off the window. Her bags under her eyes and a cloudy look said that she needed sleep and peace, but the girl was in no hurry to lie down comfortably and rest normally. In her sleepy and, as it seemed at first glance, stupid head, a simple escape plan was born, because, as already mentioned, she was tired of this chamber to hell. After a quick glance around the room, the blonde couldn't find her clothes, so she decided to run straight away, in a hospital gown and panties. Oh yes, we almost forgot about the white disposable slippers that so nicely complemented the image of the patient. And the blonde herself looked far from healthy. Disheveled tails, intertwined with each other, including bangs, dull and not radiant, as it was before, eyes, under which brown bruises rested, a couple of abrasions burning the skin, hospital clothes and a sleepy look. What do you think of a person who would look like this? Well, it's definitely not that he's healthy. Remembering the plan, the blonde cheered up a little, her eyes began to shimmer with bright colors, and the bruises decreased. Although she has changed, but not much. She was obviously tired, but she couldn't give up just like that. Thinking about how she would get out, Naruko looked around the room again as if looking for reasons why she should have stayed. When she realized that there were none, the blonde jumped out of bed and quietly, on tiptoe, reached the window. A moment, and she sits on a white window sill and looks expectantly at passers-by walking around at such a late hour. A moment, just a moment, but what did it mean for Uzumaki, who had just got out of the hospital in search of ramen? From the mere thought of this wonderful dish, the blonde's spirit was taken away, and she, unable to say anything, imagined how she was eating the most delicious delicacy in the world, teasing herself with such thoughts. Although the clothes were taken from the blue-eyed kunoichi, the money was still there. It was not for nothing that she was looking for a safe place to hide them. Finding the cash that Naruko could use to buy her treasure, the blonde beamed brightly. She rushed off to the noodle shop, losing sight of the picturesque nature of the night, the beautiful stars in the sky, the meadow just peeking out from behind the clouds and Sasuke walking under the moon near the lake, who, unlike the girl, noticed her. The only thing the brunette said, after which he went to the house, a quiet, peaceful and such a native place where he could chat with his mother, try to chat his brother or father to training, or meet his clan members. The night that enveloped Leaf's village was calm. It was impossible to say that she had recently been attacked or something like that. Occasionally, the silence was interrupted by passers-by, of whom there were not so many. Sometimes a bird flew from branch to branch, or a gentle breeze blew calmly. Suddenly, breaking the silence, a blonde girl rushed by, as if distraught from the fact that she would soon enjoy her favorite dish. Having rushed to the ill-fated noodle shop, the girl, like a hurricane, entered all damp and tired, but no less happy, as if she had won the lottery. It was pretty late. A gentle wind barely swayed the rag signs leading straight to Ichiraku. The owner, a good-natured person, was about to close the room, which had become almost a home for him, when suddenly a yellow hurricane shot up at the entrance to a small institution, forcing a light breeze to get inside. When the owner of the noodle shop raised his tired eyes and saw the person in front of him, he immediately cheered up, because it is this girl who always makes everyone smile around. Despite the past days, when the whole village hated her, now things were different. Almost every inhabitant of List treated her with reverence and respect, and there was not a trace of past contempt. "Hello, old man." The sonorous voice of the blonde carried through Ichiraku, forcing Tucci to interrupt the circle of his thoughts. "And the same to you," only he wanted to offer her noodles. When he saw the clothes, she ran away from the hospital again. A nod from the interlocutor made it clear that he was not mistaken. "It's so boring." Naruko rolled her eyes and pressed the back of her hand to her forehead to prove it. "Ha ha ha, I believe th, the man drawled. "Are you as usual?" "Naturally." Leaving the diner, the blonde first of all went to her home. Remembering that she left the window open, she was able to climb into the house without any problems. The interior was extremely simple, but it gave the room a certain comfort. Opposite the window was a door leading to a corridor. On the right, there was a double bed, odd as it might seem, 2 bedside tables, a chandelier over the carpet that rested in the middle of the room, a closet opposite the bed and a small table littered with a pile of papers. Stepping out the window into the bedroom, the blonde saw her dirty and torn clothes after the fight with a vile type for her. Just thinking about him made her cringe. But, quickly moving away, she threw the rest of her things into the trash can, which was under the table, and took out her usual one from the closet. She would go tomorrow morning to get her replacement ANBU clothes, and right now she needed rest. Having taken a shower, and standing under cool drops of water flowing smoothly over her body, for about 10 minutes, she decided that she had enough, and wrapped herself in a towel that exposed her long beautiful legs, and covering only the most intimate place, Naruko headed out of the bath. When she entered the room, she saw a note on the table that read, "Dear Naruko, come tomorrow at 4 o'clock to the academy. This is due to my being late. You already had a distribution today, which you so tactfully missed. Sasuke Uchiha and Haruno Sakura are on the same team with you. Good night. Kakashi." Damn, I couldn't tell right away. No, it was necessary to spoil the mood at the end of such a good day. Thoughts about the pink-haired woman, and how incapable and crazy she was, popped into her head. She just ignored Sasuke. So, one hindrance, one arrogant, one always late and one girl who does not want to be on the same team with them. Well, it's just great. I would never have thought that this one would be on my team. She mentally imagined the pink-haired one, and this, turkey. In a fit of a little rage, the girl almost broke the table, but having come to her senses in time, she hastened to calm down. The girl was sleeping in her bed. No one dared to disturb her sleep, when suddenly something sat down on her windowsill and began to attentively examine the blonde, as if looking for an answer, she or not she. Finally, the strange guest was finally convinced that she was a Jinchuriki. "Soon we will come for you," and with these words, the stranger disappeared. The silence of the night in the forest was interrupted by the voice of a man in an orange spiral mask. "It's definitely her. There can be no doubt," he said in a broken, slightly hoarse voice. "You are sure of it?" A creature too pale for an ordinary person answered him in his own manner, which, although in its forms, resembled a person, but was not. "Definitely. Soon we will receive it too. But for now, we need to collect animals with fewer tails," the man spoke distinctly in an icy voice. "Well, okay, oh," the creature drawled a little, "I'll go to the leader," and disappeared under the ground. "And I'll go for information about the two-tailed," the brunette said to himself, after which, with the help of technology, he transferred himself to a safer place. The singing of birds, interrupting the peace and quiet, was heard at the window of the notorious blonde, who, in fact, was snoring peacefully lying on a soft pillow. The alarm clock, which squealed not for the first time this morning, was thrown out the window, and soon it suffered a not the happiest fate. Rising on her elbows, the sleepy girl wanted to look at the time, but, to her surprise, she did not find the alarm clock, so she came to the conclusion that this watch had also been damaged by her own hands. She did not grieve for a long time, and, overcoming such a sweet desire to again touch her favorite pillow with her ear, she reached with her little hand into one of the drawers of the nightstand, which rested at the head of the bed. There was a quiet creak, after which a completely new, sky-blue clock was removed from its former chambers. The hand that grabbed the object for measuring time was swiftly carried to the still sleepy face of a pretty blonde. However, it did not remain so for long. After a quick glance at the clock, the eyes widened in horror, after which scolding was heard, and there was no trace of the alarm clock. He, like his predecessor, experienced all the blue-eyed anger on himself. However, she had something to be angry about. The hands of the clock tactfully indicated that the girl was 2 hours late for sure. Given the lateness of her current mentor, Naruko had an hour for all the preparations, which she did without wasting a second. From the former pallor that was on the sleepy face of Uzumaki, there was nothing left. Big blue eyes, on which the shadow of long black eyelashes fell, revived and ran around the room in search of a comb. Finding her in the wrong place, the girl went to the mirror and spread her 2 lush wheat-colored tails. Slightly curly front curls fell like a waterfall on the fragile shoulders of the owner of blue eyes. At the back, the hair reached below the thin wasp waist, in the lumbar region. The girl, who began to comb the strands of her hair, involuntarily drew attention to their density, following with her gaze another curl falling from the comb. This action did not last long, and now, after a few minutes, Uzumaki's hair was combed. The blue-eyed girl did not look for clothes as long as she searched for a hairbrush. On one of the wooden bedside tables rested a baggy boy's clothes that had been prepared the day before and didn't fit the girl very well. This attire was a white, loose, unremarkable t-shirt, a red jacket with a blue stripe, which, like a t-shirt, sat loosely, and completed it all with orange trousers of the most ordinary cut, at the bottom of which there were turn-ups. Having put on all of the above, the blonde looked once more in the mirror with a sigh, after which she followed to the exit. No more than half an hour had passed from the moment of awakening, and one could conclude that the girl with the appearance of a guy would have time before the arrival of sensei. There was no trace of past wounds, which is why Naruko was not afraid that her teammates might notice them. This attire was a white, loose, unremarkable t-shirt, a red jacket with a blue stripe, which, like a t-shirt, sat loosely, and completed it all with orange trousers of the most ordinary cut, at the bottom of which there were turn-ups. Having put on all of the above, the blonde looked once more in the mirror with a sigh. After which she followed to the exit. No more than half an hour had passed from the moment of awakening, and one could conclude that the girl with the appearance of a guy would have time before the arrival of sensei. There was no trace of past wounds, which is why Naruko was not afraid that her teammates might notice them. This attire was a white, loose, unremarkable t-shirt, a red jacket with a blue stripe, which, like a t-shirt, sat loosely, and completed it all with orange trousers of the most ordinary cut, at the bottom of which there were turn-ups. Having put on all of the above, the blonde looked once more in the mirror with a sigh, after which she followed to the exit. No more than half an hour had passed from the moment of awakening, and one could conclude that the girl with the appearance of a guy would have time before the arrival of sensei. There was no trace of past wounds, which is why Naruko was not afraid that her teammates might notice them. Having put on all of the above, the blonde looked once more in the mirror with a sigh, after which she followed to the exit. No more than half an hour had passed from the moment of awakening, and one could conclude that the girl with the appearance of a guy would have time before the arrival of sensei. There was no trace of past wounds, which is why Naruko was not afraid that her teammates might notice them. Having put on all of the above, the blonde looked once more in the mirror with a sigh, after which she followed to the exit. No more than half an hour had passed from the moment of awakening, and one could conclude that the girl with the appearance of a guy would have time before the arrival of sensei. There was no trace of past wounds, which is why Naruko was not afraid that her teammates might notice them. The path of the Uzumaki lay across the main street of Konohagakure no Sato, where every day people darted back and forth, the inhabitants of this beautiful abode. The blonde, step by step, approached the academy, from which she graduated just yesterday, officially becoming a genin. The catch is that she was an ANBU, not some snotty genin who basically can't do anything. Naruko's POV. And why did the Hokage take it into his head to send me to the academy? He knows my abilities, and yet he sent me to go through all this again. Surely Hiruzen did not do this out of pure desire. Well, I'll hope for the best. End of POV Naruko. The blue-eyed woman thought in this direction all the way, not noticing that she had already almost reached the building in which the meeting was to take place. Stepping inside, the Jinchuriki walked down the hallway she'd led her classmates out recently to keep them safe. Almost nothing has changed in this place, from which the girl concluded that this place did not really suffer from the hands, or rather even the paws of Orochimaru. And don't care that snakes don't have paws. Okay, it took me to the wrong step. Let's continue. So, the owner of Heavenly Eyes wanders along a long light yellow corridor, the windows from which led outside. The girl walked past a bunch of doors, unable to find room 287. What nonsense! Why can't I find this room? Uzumaki exclaimed in her hearts. Isn't it lost? No. Could not. Maybe. Now the blonde was talking to herself, going over all sorts of reasons. Phew. Okay, what would I do without the ability of the censor, not without the help of Kurama, of course. Folding her hands into the necessary seal, the speaker detected chakra flows from a place that was not far from here. Given that there were only two sources, and they were extremely small, the blonde concluded that Kakashi had not yet arrived, and that she needed to stomp there. With each step, the kurama wearer accelerated, gradually moving to an easy run. The doors leading to the auditorium rushed past at a faster rate than before. The same applies to the windows, past which the girl rushed swiftly. Before she reached the office, about 10 meters away, the blonde slowed down and finally took a leisurely step, looking at which it was impossible to think that this person was in a hurry somewhere. The girl stood close to the door blocking her way. There was a slight push, and light air that was in the corridor crept into the office. Walking inside, Naruko caught two extremely displeased looks on herself, after which she noticed that the owner of the onyx eyes took them aside, and the pink-haired one was still drilling a hole in the poor blonde. Sasuke and Sakura, and it was they, sat in the office, apparently for 4 hours, no less. A bored look wandering around the room, in search of something new, the nervous rumbling of children's bellies, small bruises under the eyes, legs that strove to give way, threatening their owner to fall on a hard wooden floor. Uchiha was behind the first desk of the first row, from the door, and Haruno settled down near the blackboard, and looking away from the one who came, she thought about something of her own. And judging by her appearance, it is clearly about something not particularly pleasant to her. The two boys were dressed in casual clothes. It was only recently that the genin headbands were something new in their outfits. Having reached the window, the Jinchuriki began to examine the picturesque area behind it, involuntarily thinking. Naruko's POV. What am I doing here? For what? Why? Was there a reason? God, I'm confused. End of POV Naruko. So many questions and not a single answer. Fortunately for the blue-eyed girl, she was interrupted by Hataki, who appeared in the room just in time. Hello everyone, the man said in a bored voice. A little about his appearance, starting from the top, one could notice, at first glance, gray hair with a crew cut. Below was a bandage of the leaf village, reflecting a thin ray of the sun. On the face was a dark gray mask, stretched from the chin to the left eye, where they were attached to the protector. On the body was a standard dark gray shinobi turtleneck, over which was a green vest, certifying the rank of shinobi, jonin. On his feet were black, slightly baggy pants. The shoes were standard ninja boots, blue. "VVUS, you are late," a little yawning, said a girlish, slightly squeaky voice, obviously trembling. A black cat crossed the road, the ash-haired one smiled slightly through his impenetrable mask. Oh well, there was not a trace left of the smiling man. The warm mask of cordiality was replaced by another, serious one. "Waiting for you on the roof of the building," Kakashi said, and immediately disappeared without another word. The Hatake evaporated with a soft pop. "Apparently, he is waiting on the roof," the blonde said softly, which caused Haruno to look at her displeasedly, which, in fact, did not hide from her gaze. "What? Do not make yourself smart, it's bad," the pink-haired one answered. "You might think that you are brilliant with your mind," the girl answered her in time with a slightly hoarse boyish voice. Apparently, the green-eyed arguments are over." "Send for him," the Uchiha intervened. "Of course, Sasuke-kun, God forbid," she will say now, "they say he is so smart," flashed through the blue-eyed head, "You are so smart, Sasuke-kun, I'll puke." "Well, let's go," and without saying anything more, the Jinchuriki went out the door, slamming it lightly, and while the couple who remained in the room were idle, the girl, without hesitation, evaporated into the air with the same quiet pop as her new mentor. "Well, how do you like these two?" Kakashi broke the silence. "Well, the blonde, dressed up as a guy, drawled thoughtfully, "Uchiha has potential, but Haruno should be messed with. That is, of course, if she wants to become strong. In the meantime, she is not interested in anything but her beloved, and, of course, the ideal Yukishka. B. Her tone and attitude makes me puke," the girl chatted colloquially with the ash-haired girl, as if in front of her was not a mentor, but her friend. "Well, this is not news. Every second person she meets falls in love with Sasuke, and every third person just likes him." After his remark, the man pointedly raised his finger up. "Apparently, I belong to neither one nor the second species," the Uzumaki snorted. But I thought you valued friends?" Hatake raised an eyebrow questioningly. "And what does this have to do with it?" The girl was clearly perplexed. "Friends, of course, it's a good thing, but this is different. He is a guy that everyone he meets clings to, like a dream guy, Tyri-Pyri. I can't even get to know him, even though I'm in a kid's outfit. Yes, and I don't really want to. His personality sometimes infuriates me. Perhaps it will seem strange, a person who knows him nothing at all talks so easily about his character, but I'm just too observant, and we crossed paths several times before. Not the nicest person." "Oh, okay. But in any case, you will need to establish teamwork. Without it, in any way, you know yourself," the blonde only sighed sarcastically, raising her blue eyes to the sky. "And one more thing," her new mentor said a little stricter, and the blonde tensed, frowning a little. "I don't really like your game of dressing up. Did you understand what I mean? Clear stump. However, without this, in any way, I beg your pardon. And yes, talk to me and about me in a man's face. I don't want my scam to be seen through prematurely," Kakashi's girl asked. "Well, then you speak to me in a respectful manner. And yes, definitely with a suffix." Naruko just bulged her big eyes, as if asking, "Are you kidding?" and sarcastically raised her eyebrows, "Well, without it in any way. And you will look suspicious." "Nothing suspicious. What are you? You can make up tales, and they will believe us. Especially if you nod like a Chinese idol, agreeing with me in everything. Then they won't reveal us. By the way, they are almost here. We pretend like nothing happened. Quietly, peacefully disperse." And, with these words, the speaker turned around her axis by 180 degrees, and walked onto the ladder, consisting of 3 steps, while Hataki sat down on the railing, exhaling dejectedly. And now, after about 3 minutes of commercials, it seemed 2 tops, which with every second became more and more. As you may have guessed, it was Sasuke and Sakura themselves. The Uchiha walked according to his custom, putting his hands in the pockets of light-colored bridges, and with a branded cover face, they say, "Great me to shit on everyone and everything." But Haruno now and then emitted with her eyes hearts in the direction of the brunette, which was followed by another snort from Uzumaki in the thought, "I'm going to vomit, again," which became a constant guest in Naruko's head. However, one way or another, the blonde's thoughts were interrupted again. And this was done by none other than Kakashi, who was already a little fed up with sitting on the sidelines and watching the unhurried procession of a couple of his students. "Well, sit down." The children dutifully sat down on the steps on different, no matter how strange, sides from Naruko, so it turned out that the blonde was in the center, between Sasuke and Sakura. "Let's start small. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your hobbies, what you like to do and, finally, about your dream." The mentor listed them, after which the guys decided that they would tell in turn how they sit. However, what was said after did not apply to answers to questions. To be more precise, Haruno asked Sensei to set an example, thereby trying to find out at least some information about her new mentor. Sakura, do you really think that he will take it like that and tell everything about himself?" "Yes, you are naive. As I see it, the blonde had already made an approximate description of the pink-haired girl, from which she concluded that what a complete nonsense. At least for now. Hataki Kakashi. My age is optional. What I like or don't like, it's still too early for you to know. A dream. I don't have one." "Well, that's the whole idea," flashed through the blonde head. "So, now you." Sakura Haruno. 13 years old. What do I love? Or rather, even someone. Haruno bulged her already large green eyes at the unfortunate Sasuke, who was shaking slightly from her gaze. After that, a happy squeak was heard from Sakura. Like Naruko said, Kakashi grimaced. "Okay, next one. I'm Naruto Uzumaki." The blue-eyed girl began in a cheerful boyish voice. "I like to eat ramen and I don't like to wait until it is cooked." The girl did not lie, and Kakashi knew this very well, because he had been given the chance to eat with Jinchuriki more than once, and therefore he knew about her weakness. "What do I dream about?" Uzumaki thoughtfully put her index finger to her lower lip, raising her eyes to the sky. "To become Hokage," she exclaimed. A picture of the third old man that suddenly popped up gave her the idea. And why not, actually? The girl supported herself, mentally cursing Hiruzen, who broke into her head at such an inopportune time, giggling suspiciously. But this is something new. But, most likely, there was either a reason to answer that way, or she blurted out the first thing that came to mind. However, in both cases, Naruko is in his repertoire, so there is no need to worry, Hataki thought, after which he began to listen to the last person. "I'm Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like a lot, I like a little. Dream, no. This is the goal. My goal is to surpass my brother in ability, so. Well, it doesn't matter anymore." Author's note, and this person is the same Uchiha? The Uchiha who wanted Konoha and all the Kage to smash on the ground? Feet in my mouth, this is a twist. Fine. "Everything is clear with you," slowly, as if tasting the words, Kakashi said, "so, listen. Tomorrow you will have another exam, as a result of which it will become clear whether you are suitable for the role of a ninja, or vice versa. If you fail this test, then," the man made a meaningful pause, thereby escalating the situation, "then all 3 of you go back to the academy, and... well, how do you order to perceive it?" The blonde sarcastically raised her eyebrow, spitting from a high bell tower at the conspiracy. Hataki raised both of his eyebrows, as if to say, "Are you stupid? What kind of office are you burning?" is a silent question that no one will give an answer to. Uchiha and Haruno. Don't be outraged, Naruto, Sensei emphasized the last syllable of the name, as a result of which the blue-eyed one still dragged on. These are the rules. Kakashi received an unsatisfactory look from Uzumaki, and yes, do not eat anything before training, otherwise it will turn out, Hatake said after a pause. Yes, he's just afraid, put in her, 3 kopecks, pink-haired. Okay. Stop it. In general, we are going tomorrow at the 7th training ground at 6 a.m. Have a nice day, and again he disappeared. Yeah, good luck, of course, the blonde said quietly, but Sasuke could hear her. I'll go too, Naruko said, standing up from her seat. And moving away from the new team members, she evaporated in a white cloud of smoke, being transported home. Night time. The blonde wandered through the deserted streets, which was undoubtedly a rarity in such a large village as Konoha, but the girl walked without noticing the silence, having gone deep into her thoughts for a long time and not paying attention to how someone under the mask was tirelessly watching her. After walking another 3 blocks, the blue-eyed one was tired of walking, thinking about life and other things that spoil the mood, and she, throwing her head high, as if preparing to find someone she knew in the crowd, was about to step forward, but what she saw surprised her. There was not a single one on the street. Souls. I wandered far, the blonde thought, after which she pushed off the ground with her feet and smoothly sank down on the roof of one of the low houses. Of course, you can get on the roofs of the houses much faster than wandering through the lonely nooks and crannies on the edge of the village. By the way, at the moment, Naruko was a petite, pretty person with 2 long golden ponytails that reached her waist and bangs that slightly covered her eyes. The girl herself was wearing a white t-shirt that reached her mid-thigh, without any print or inscription, with a short sleeve. Short denim shorts were barely visible below. Beneath them, the Uzumaki's leg was bandaged, and on top of the bandages was a pouch containing weapons. On her feet were red sneakers with white laces neatly tied into bows. Definitely. Right now, one looked less like a belligerent shinobi who knew how to use a blade in battle and was able to stand up for himself, but like a small, well-kept china doll recently put up for sale. To a person who saw this person for the first time, it would not have occurred to her that she was a shinobi, and therefore, possibly the killer. Well, okay, let's put the bad thoughts aside, and continue our story. The blonde began to move in the direction where the street lamps brightly illuminated the streets. The dark shadow continued to follow her, believing that it had gone unnoticed, but the girl managed to catch powerful chakra flows belonging to a stranger. The shadow threw a kunai at the girl's back, but he, not having time to reach his goal, fell, not reaching literally a meter. And the rumors didn't lie. You are indeed strong, even though you do not fully control the power, the masked man said, clearly smirking. Who are you? Without turning around, the blonde asked a question. Who am I? I think you don't need to know this, the stranger wanted to add something else, but suddenly stopped. Come on, talk, you bastard. Otherwise, I'll beat everything out of you by force, the girl began to threaten. Maybe you are strong, but not to such an extent that you can defeat me, the man seemed to be trying to anger the blue-eyed woman. Believe me, in order to lay you down, I have enough strength, the Jinchuriki continued, having slightly moderated her ardor. Do you want to check? Attack. Here the Uzumaki did not hesitate. The girl moved behind the enemy with lightning speed and swung her fist to strike. However, the attack went through the masked unknown. What the hell, flashed through the head of the poor girl. This opponent was indeed too tough for her. The unknown in turn began to attack, turning around to face Naruko, who, unable to keep her balance, fell to her knees in front of him. Raising his hand with the kunai above his head, he hesitated a little and cast a glance at the blonde, as if saying goodbye, abruptly lowered her so that the kunai stuck into the left side of the back, just above the waist, burning the previously velvety skin with blood flowing from the wound. Okay, it's all over now. As expected, I won, and you remained the loser. See you soon, Uzumaki Naruko, the man said goodbye, disappearing into the funnel, spinning from the mask. What was it? The blue-eyed woman thought to herself, but soon remembered the wound. Hastily pulling the kunai out of the damage, which did not work immediately, the Jinchuriki had to resort to the help of his bijou, and with its help heal himself. The injured t-shirt, which had time to partially soak in blood, Naruko decided to shorten it, turning it into a kind of long top, reaching to the ends of the ribs. And now, after a few minutes, on the roof was no longer a wounded blonde, who, as it seemed, was dying, but a cheerful girl, ready to rush into battle, sparing no effort. After standing like that for another minute, Uzumaki slowly wandered to the side where the light shone brightly. Arriving home, the first thing the blonde went to the bathroom to wash off all the dirt, all the sweat. Having entered the room, the girl threw off her clothes on the floor, after which, turning on the warm water, climbed into the shower stall. The blue-eyed lady felt relaxed. Drops of water streamed down her body, flowing down her slender body, outlining a figure that had not yet been fully formed. Making the water cooler, Naruko felt 1,000 goosebumps run through her skin. Taking the shampoo, the blonde applied it to her hair, and then began to rub it along the entire length. After washing off the soap, the Jinchuriki applied conditioner to her golden miracle, and after waiting for 2 minutes, she hastily washed off. Throwing a white terry towel over her head, Uzumaki pulled out another soft white towel from a cabinet hanging over the sink next to the shower stall, only it was larger than the previous one. The girl went into the room and wanted to jump onto the bed with a run. But when she stopped, she decided that she would put on her pajamas first. Sleeping clothes were mid-thigh pink shorts, loosely fitting on blue-eyed ones, and a blue-colored t-shirt, reaching to the waist, sitting as loosely as the shorts. Deciding that she would still fulfill her wish, Naruko moved away from the bed, to the farthest corner, and, running up, plopped down on the soft feather bed, jumping up on it. Are you having fun? That's what the grouchy Kakashi would say, of course, if he were here. But, like everything else, the fun came to an end when the alarm clock showed 12. It's time for the banka. Otherwise, I'll come tomorrow later, Kakashi. The girl drawled in her subconscious. Again, Sakura will run into B. The blonde shook her head, as if trying to drive away the back thoughts that interfered with sleep. However, they did not want to leave the blonde head in any way, which is why its owner did not feel better. Sleep, sleep. To me. Necessary. Sleep. Crap. The extraneous thoughts did not yield to any pressure from Naruko, who desperately tried to drive them away. No, just look. 2 o'clock at night. And the girl keeps cutting circles, going around the bedroom. And all why? Yes, because the thoughts of the teammates climbed into my head, trying not to let the Uzumaki fall asleep. And what happened on the roof of a certain house frightened her a little. Even if she is a ninja, she is first and foremost a person who has her own fears. The girl raised her exhausted gaze to the watch, the hands of which were already approaching the number 3. Decided. With the usual playfulness and mischief, the blue-eyed kunoichi went towards the corridor, and from it already got to the kitchen. Approaching a white wooden cabinet with blue stripes, the girl raised herself up on her toes, opening the doors along the way, after which she reached inside with her hand, starting to rummage around the shelves in search of sleeping pills. Not finding it here, the blonde closed the cabinet and made her way to the kitchen table, where she thought she took her pills for the last time. But they were not there either. However, there was a note on the table, on which was scrawled. Dear Naruko. I took your miracle pills while you were gone. Please don't get angry. Your Kakashi. Awesome, the girl mumbled. I'll be late tomorrow, or rather, today, let him blame himself. And, blazing with all the abusive words that she only knew, the Jinchuriki left the kitchen, and when she reached the room, she flopped onto the bed with a running start. Still, I'm tired. I'll have to, the blonde did not have time to finish the thought in her head, when, unexpectedly even for herself, she plunged into a beautiful dream. And at that moment, when the girl was walking, sprinkling Hatake with all sorts of different curses, the hero of the occasion had long been snoring quietly and peacefully in his bed, releasing a package of miraculous pills on the floor from his hands. As surprising as it may seem, the blonde woke up about an hour earlier before the start of classes, that is, before the gathering of Sakura and Sasuke. Naruko herself was not going to go to such an early time, and knowing Kakashi's tendency to be late, then what can we even talk about? Barely opening her sleepy eyes, the girl first of all went to the bathroom, on the way throwing on a terry dressing gown with a flower. Walking from one room to another, Uzumaki grabbed her toothbrush and toothpaste and started brushing her teeth. Upon completion of this procedure, the blonde began the next, no less important thing, to wash her face. Having opened the tap and filled her hands with water, the Jinchuriki closed her eyes, and then there was a slight splash of water that fell on her pretty, slightly sleepy face. Leaving the room, the girl threw on a white t-shirt and pulled on shorts. The image was complemented by a red free vest. On his feet, however, as always, were wearing standard shinobi sandals. Naruko was too lazy to do anything with her hair, so she just combed it. The curls of gold scattered over the shoulders of a miniature girl, but after Ace DK they were removed in two high ponytails. Running out of a cozy apartment, the Jinchuriki went to the noodle shop. Indeed, where without your favorite ramen? That's right, nowhere. So Naruko was of the same opinion, and therefore she was now rushing like crazy to her little paradise. Along the way, she did not meet anyone, which could not but rejoice, and therefore the girl was completely calm and relaxed. Who would even think of walking at such an early hour? Nobody, you say? No. There are some smart people. Only the blonde thought that she would be able to get into the diner without incident, and eat there to fame, as Itachi grew out of nowhere, whom the girl, by the way, did not notice. Naruko. Isn't it early in the morning for ramen? The brunette asked. Of course, we're even without him. Naruko exclaimed loudly. I'm going with you, there's nothing to do anyway. The guy, in order to confirm what he said, rolled his eyes, not forgetting to click his tongue loudly. Yes, no problem, Uchiha definitely will not interfere with her meal, and therefore the blonde decided to agree. Then wait a second, Itachi said, after which he turned 180 degrees and began to look for someone with his eyes. Naruko stood at a loss as the Uchiha suddenly called out a name, apparently finding the one he was looking for. Sasuke. Not him. The small one can burn me. Damn. I hate Itachi. As soon as Sasuke leaves, I'll show him Kusuke's mother. The girl was indignant, on the go picking up beautiful abusive words that should have been poured on the Uchiha senior, after the departure of the younger one. Yes, I'm here. Sasuke appeared behind his brother, looking around the second with a tired look. Who were you talking to? Yes, I met a friend, now we'll go with her for ramen. A displeased grimace appeared on the younger's face. Everyone goes, without objections. You said yourself that you have nothing to do, retorted the older Uchiha, while Naruko mentally rubbed her hands a lot evil genius. Yeah, he has nothing to do. That's when Hatake drags his lazy ass to the training ground. You'll have something to do, Sasuke. Bugagashenki. Well, since we figured it out, why don't we go to eat already? By the way, Naruko, this is Sasuke. Sasuke is Naruko. The ANBU member introduced the guys to each other. Very nice, the guy snorted and immediately looked away, saying that I was not interested. Mutually, the blonde said in a calm voice. Sasuke, show some respect, at least sometimes. She may not be older than you in age, but she certainly is in rank. Then the ANBU stammered. And what is her title? Itachi's younger brother asked with an eyebrow raised, more interested in the blonde herself than in his brother. Like your brother. I'm from ANBU. But I don't really like to talk about it, so we closed the topic, Naruko said as she snapped. PF, I didn't really want to, Sasuke spoke again. Itachi, noticing the tension increasing with every second, hurried to somehow divert the conversation in another direction. Guys, are we going to Ichiraku aphids and will we stand still? The boy raised an eyebrow questioningly. Let's go, Dat, she trailed off. Dat? Sasuke asked. Doesn't matter. Let's go already. The blonde exclaimed, and immediately rushed to the noodle shop, completely forgetting about the presence of the Uchiha. If you think about it, I've already seen her, the younger said, pointing his finger up. The ANBU member just rolled his eyes at this with the thought, didn't you really guess? She was running down the street in Ichiraku, dressed like a mad woman in a hospital gown. Oh no, I didn't know, Itachi thought with a sigh of relief, postponing his execution. Send for her, or something, the elder Uchiha said, slowly walking towards the diner. When the two Uchihas entered the establishment itself, Naruko was already finishing her second portion of her favorite pork ramen. Won't she burst? Sasuke exclaimed in surprise in his thoughts, but decided not to appear again. So, will you do anything? The host Ichiraku asked kindly. Yeah, maybe one ramen for me, Sasuke? The boy looked at his younger brother questioningly. No. Our new sensei said not to eat before training, Sasuke shook his index finger, Kakashi, it seems. The Uzumaki felt sorry for him. Yes, spit on hostility, the consciousness brazenly exclaimed. You know what, the girl began quietly, you can eat. Kakashi, if you post it, then post everything with giblets, well, in general, he is constantly late. Not 10 minutes, not half an hour, not even an hour. If you go there at the scheduled start, you will stand waiting for another 4 hours, no less. Maybe even more than that, the blonde Sasuke warned with her long line. For some reason, the younger Uchiha blushed, while the older one was all touched by this picture. Okay, then I also have one ramen, please, puffing out his cheeks, the guy said. But it's better to come at the appointed time, the Uchiha Jinchuriki asked. Okay. Thanks for the info. Sasuke smiled condescendingly. The guys were brought hot, appetizing smelling ramen, and without a second's hesitation, they began to eat the dish. It took the blonde no more than 3 minutes, but the Uchiha, who were not used to this, had a harder time. All three talked while eating another portion, so much so that it felt like they were old friends. However, this could not last long, and as soon as Sasuke looked at the clock hanging on one of the walls, the guy immediately exclaimed. I'm late. Okay, guys, I'm running, and waving to Naruko and Itachi, Uchiha Jr. vanished from the noodle shop like he wasn't even there. It can be normal when it wants to, Uzumaki was the first to break the silence. Yeez. I haven't seen him open like this in a long time. You influence him, the Uchiha decided to pin up the girl, but immediately caught an angry look on himself. Nothing of the kind, the blonde pouted, okay, we have to go too. Thank you for the food, and leaving the money on the table, Uzumaki and Uchiha left the institution. Meanwhile, Sasuke had already reached the training ground. He came, oddly enough, before Haruno, which, in fact, surprised him. However, just a few minutes later, her pink top appeared, and then Sasuke realized that how in vain he came here so early. After all, Sakura will not leave him behind. There was only hope for the remaining member of the team, Naruto, who, perhaps, would be able to cope with the character of the girl. But, as luck would have it, the boy did not want to appear. Did he also find out about Sensei's tardiness? Yesterday the same. He arrived a few minutes before Kakashi. Either he knows everything, or he constantly wakes up and is late because of his stupidity. And, to be honest, I'm more inclined towards the second, the Uchiha concluded. And while Uchiha Jr. was suffering in the company of Haruno, Naruko was sitting in her room and putting herself in order. And to be more precise, the girl dressed as a guy. No, but what? She needs to keep up her role. That was exactly what the young Jinchuriki thought as she tucked her hair into a bandage. She was already wearing her usual baggy red suit. After doing everything, and collecting her thoughts, Naruko jumped out of the window and ran towards the training ground. Naruko was a very bright girl, despite all the stereotypes about blondes. It was logical to think that it would be strange for the girl to appear literally 10 minutes before the arrival of Hatake. And so she decided to show up about half an hour before the start, and not just like that, but with a cry. They say she overslept. And so, having entered the training ground, Uzumaki, with a battle cry, attracted everyone's attention. I overslept. Sensei hasn't shown up yet? The girl stared at the Uchiha inquiringly, waiting for an answer, although she already knew the answer. Waking up is bad for health, what would you know? Sakura yelled at Naruto, closing her eyes. Look at yourself, bitch, muttered the blue-eyed one, making an offended tone. The pink-haired girl couldn't bear it. Swinging her fist, she was about to hit the blonde top of her head, but her hand was suddenly intercepted. Don't open your stumps, huh? The angry Jinchuriki hissed. Haruno could only stare at the representative of the Uzumaki clan with bulging eyes, which amazed her so much. No one before, except for Ino, of course, did not dare to give her such a clear rebuff. Kakashi, having arrived earlier than the scheduled time, got into an argument that threatened to turn into a fight, placing his wide hand on the girl's shoulders. What are you guys arguing about? It's not appropriate for girls to talk to their comrades like that. He looked at Haruno, and then, slightly shifting his gaze to Uzumaki, focusing on her, but only Naruko herself understood this, he continued, and the guys, by the way, too. Take an example from the Uchiha. Kakashi nodded at that one. Upturning her freckled nose, Sakura hastened to turn her face away. And Naruko yanked her shoulder out of Sensei's hand. So, if you don't mind, I'll probably start. Hatake coughed. I have bells. He took off 2 bells from his belt that tinkled when they collided with each other, and you must take them away from me while he works timer. But there are only 2 of them, just like we did then, Haruno remarked reasonably. Yes, only 2, Kakashi cut her off, which means only 2 of you will pass and become genin. The one who can't get the bell will be left with nothing. Here the jonin stood for a short pause, escalating the situation. He will return back to the academy, he said calmly, which made the kids goosebumps. Everyone had their own thoughts on this. The Uchiha thought that he would surely be able to defeat Hatake and take the bell. Sakura thought that the 2 of them with Sasuke would be able to take away the bells from the sensei, and both of them would become true genin, as she put it to herself, while pushing the unwanted Naruto out of their society. And the blonde, in turn, decided that it was better not to interfere in this circus, and even more so not to fight Kakashi seriously. No, she still can't defeat him for sure, let alone the others, but you can always fool around, especially if she doesn't become a genin, then most likely she will go back to serve in the ANBU, and she was very sympathetic to this situation. Attack, Sensei commanded, and Naruko decided not to hesitate. Running at him, the blonde hit with her foot, and then with her hand, but was easily thrown a few meters back. Kakashi, accepting her game, took out the book, Come Come Paradise, written by Uzumaki's godfather, and began to parry all the blows that Naruko jokingly threw. Throwing her into the water, he decided that she would calm down, but no, the blonde decided to emerge, and even set her clones on him. Hatake, using a replacement, disappeared behind the trees, and Naruko began to diligently look for him, albeit not really. Seeing a bell lying on the ground, and understanding the mentor's idea, she ran in that direction, and when she was about to grab the bell, even managing to run her finger along it, she was thrown up sharply, and her legs were tightly tied. Kakashi, with his usual poker face, landed on both feet as he began lecturing the girl, letting the others take action. Sasuke decided not to miss such an opportunity and, abruptly pulling the shurikens out of his bag, he threw them at Sensei. And he did, to his surprise. But then everything fell into place and the guy, instead of being proud of himself, was forced to self-flagellate and quickly drape, because the hataki he got into turned out to be a simple piece of wood. Sakura ran after Sasuke, hoping that he was fine, and Sensei didn't dare to hurt him. Seeing Hataki on the ground, she abruptly stopped. I just thought that I hadn't slept, when they called her from behind, and with a squeal she flew down from the tree. Kakashi used a genjutsu, and temporarily eliminated the unfortunate Haruno, plunging her into an unpleasant illusion for her. Sasuke nevertheless decided to fight openly. Before that he did not forget to say something like, "I'm not like them." Indeed, he was able to touch the bell, but he immediately failed. Hataki managed to jump away from the Uchiha, and then completely disappear. Sasuke shook his head up and down, left and right. Even turned 180 degrees, but could not find his mentor. And when I heard the word, from below, it was already too late. He himself did not notice how he found himself under the ground, only his head remained sticking out above the soil. Sasuke couldn't move. "You really are not like them," Hataki said, noting that he was talking about a difference with his teammates than the one the Uchiha was thinking of. Naruto had been quiet the whole time. She decided that since she was not participating in this performance, she would at least be able to look around. And this, by the way, bore fruit. Not far from her location, on a stone statue, their supposed dinner was located, to which the girl immediately went, having previously cut off all the ropes. When she reached her destination, she managed to climb onto a stone slab. Sitting comfortably, Uzumaki took one serving and slowly opened it. Convinced that no one was going to take away food, the Jinchuriki began to eat, only, alas, it did not last long. Kakashi, jumping out of the bushes, scared the blonde to death, after which he had to knock on the back of the poor frightened girl. "Well, you know," Kakashi said sternly, "you will pass the test like everyone else, without concessions. It even works for me. Then I will return to the ranks of the ANBU." What was the old man thinking about anyway? No, the Jonin drawled ominously, "You, as promised, will return to the academy, and you will scrub the floors there, if anything. Generally bye-bye." Naruko twisted at her temple, "Do not scare. And then you will pump out again." "What about me?" "I'm telling you seriously. You know, I can take the bell away from you, but that's not the goal at all, is it?" The girl asked, "Then what is it?" Hataki only raised his eyes to the sky. "Think for yourself. And now, if you please, go to that pole." Kakashi waved his hand towards the 3 wooden poles, on one of which there was a timer. "For what?" the girl asked again. "I will tie you up," Sensei said calmly, and, ahead of the next question, he answered, "for eating their food." Well, at least there is still packaging. And then without food, the kids would be left. But Naruko got angry. "Alas and ah, but you will pass this exam on an equal footing with all rights." Kakashi's words are cut through, "If you don't want to go voluntarily, I'll lead by force. So, I can say that you will never become real shinobi." Hataki stated the fact, to which he received displeased expressions on the faces of small genin. A scowling Tide boy with a girlish pout was especially striking, but, "So be it, I'll give you a second chance." He received a wide smile from the blonde, a slight smirk from the Uchiha, and undisguised joy from Haruno. "In the meantime, have lunch," Kakashi said as he put containers of food into Sasuke and Sakura's hands. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Naruto goes without lunch, so don't even try to feed him. It is also forbidden to untie it. And if you disobey," an evil spark flashed in the Jonin's eye, "you will be punished, and all 3, indiscriminately, will go back to the academy. You will scrub the floors there," and with these words he disappeared. Again. What a mess. the Jinchuriki yelled at the top of her lungs. Her comrades already had their ears blocked. Don't yell like that, Sasuke said calmly as he unpacked his food. Sakura followed suit and began to eat. Naruko's stomach, not without her help and prayer to heaven, rumbled. The Uchiha gave her the first look, and then Sakura, repeating the movements of Itachi's younger brother. Sasuke just sighed deeply as he handed his lunch to the confused blonde. From a hungry you will not be of much use, he explained, catching the incomprehensible look of his comrade. No, Sasuke-kun. If you give food to Naruto, then I should do it. I'm on a diet now anyway, Sakura cut in. Well, as you know, said the Uchiha, and then, going up to the post, he cut the rope. Actually, Naruko chuckled stupidly, scratching the back of her head, I have a bento with me, so you don't have to sacrifice your food for me. And now eat! She exclaimed, immediately starting to eat the bento. The others also joined her. You! Sensei rumbled in a menacing voice, you violated my prohibition. He began to fold the seals, and the sky was covered with gray-black impenetrable clouds. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Kakashi seemed to be bullying the kids. Hirono took a fighting stance, Sasuke frowned, and Naruko mentally made a facepalm. You yourself said that we are a team. The Uchiha spoke first. Yes, and comrades should help each other, the green-eyed woman began to assent. Well, yes, and the blonde simply had nothing to add, because she knew one thing for sure, if now she starts talking about friendship, camaraderie and all that, then they will stand here until the next evening, and Kakashi will definitely send her into exile to scrub toilets in the academy. Comrades? Is that your answer? The guys swallowed in sync, slightly nodding their heads in agreement. Then you passed. Hatake smiled sweetly. In the shinobi world, those who break the rules are called garbage, the jonin began quietly, but those who leave friends in trouble, much worse than trash. The sun crawled out from behind the clouds. Kakashi, having said about tomorrow's gathering place, disappeared somewhere again, but Sasuke, Sakura and Naruko were provided with a nervous tick. So, long known to everyone for her originality and uniqueness, Naruko was walking home, exhausted by the chatter of Hirono, who, a few hours earlier, was chattering incessantly about her beloved Sasuke, apparently without hesitation turning to him himself. The blonde could not even think before that one could talk so much, and she, like no one else, was an all-in-one place. And I will hear it, almost every day, the Uzumaki thought dejectedly. Indeed, she could not have thought of any team that would annoy her even more than waiting for the next portion of ramen. And she still has to work with them in the near future. How she reached the house, the girl did not remember, and before closing her eyes, falling into a dream, she hugged a plush red fox. The week flew by unnoticed by the previously vigorous girl, who all this time walked as if lowered into the water. These tedious petty missions that the students of the academies must perform, according to the Jinchuriki, were so annoying and morally exhausting that there was no longer any strength to please themselves with their favorite delicacy, not to mention fun. The alarm clock, set for 7 in the morning, rang exactly on time, but was not thrown out of the open window, but remained in place, which was extremely rare. The seller from the watch store will be surprised that the girl did not come in, because she goes to him every day. Everyone, but not this time. The mood from the very morning was nasty, as if Sakura, with her buzzing, got the girl in a dream, but no, the reason was different. As soon as the Jinchuriki woke up from the ringing of the alarm clock, she was seized by an unpleasant premonition, which, by the way, the girl has never failed. Passing by the residence, the blonde decided to look in, and at the same time wash all the bones of the third. Having reached the spiral staircase leading up, bending in some places, Naruko walked close to it with quiet steps, after which, after standing for a second, she began to climb quietly, slowly, as if not in a hurry. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The girl lost count of 35 to 36 steps, stumbling and hitting her nose on the stone floor. Having reached the very top, the Jinchuriki turned right and went straight down the corridor. Stopping near a massive wooden door, the blonde, after standing for a while, decided that since she was going to elicit information from a third person, she shouldn't stand on ceremony, and therefore she slightly pushed the door with her hands, and it opened, quietly creaking. 4 pairs of eyes turned to the sound, and then a greeting followed. "Ah, Naru, come on in." The blonde was horrified. Not only the Hokage was standing in front of her, but also her whole team. Okay, Kakashi knows, Sasuke has already seen her. And Sakura. Well, of course, you can call her names in any way, but whatever you say, she is the smartest in their team. God forbid he sees something else. Well, at least Sarutobi did not say the whole name. And the girl was also saved by the fact that she was in shorts, a t-shirt, with 2 ponytails, and without a bandage, and this image did not stick a little with the image of a careless boy. They were similar only in hair and eyes, but otherwise, nothing in common. Listen, could you call Naruto, otherwise he, I suppose, overslept everything. The third immediately drove into the topic, realizing that the blonde needed to be escorted away from prying eyes. She's in the ANBU, the Hokage explained to the kids as the girl quietly walked outside the door. Yes, calm down. I will create a clone, and I myself will change into a guy, and I will bring myself to the office by the third. With such thoughts, the girl quickly ran to the house, just as quickly changed clothes, not forgetting to put her hair in a boy-like hairstyle, having previously created a clone that took the form of a girl. Now, 2 people appeared before our eyes, a girl and a boy, moreover, suspiciously similar, which made us feel that they were twins. Anyway, let's leave unnecessary descriptions, which will be out of place now, and fast forward to the office of the third, which Naruko just entered in the guise of a guy. A bright head appeared in the door that Uzumaki had just passed through and, with a squeak, they say, "I brought him," immediately disappeared. To be more precise, the door slammed shut, and the clone, which retreated a good 10 meters, evaporated so as not to be heard, otherwise you never know. Let's move on, in fact, to the task itself. Sarutobi began, but was immediately brazenly interrupted by Uzumaki, who was making a fool out of herself. Exercise? Mission what? What do you mean? What oh? Naruto's eyes bulged, and in the meantime, his eyebrows confidently crept up. P.F. Sakura snorted, "There must be a limit to your stupidity," and, catching an evil look, Naru continued, "Or am I mistaken?" The blonde let out a low growl that could only be interpreted as, "If you don't shut up right now, I'll kill you." Sakura didn't have to repeat it twice, all her confidence disappeared somewhere, and so she stood with her head down, and her shoulders trembled slightly, neither from fear, nor from anger. "So, since you have already finished," the Hokage paused, sighing, and then continued again, "then I will tell you what the essence of the mission is." After a long conversation held in the office of the third, the guys understood only one thing: they would have to accompany some drunkard who, with all the existing shortcomings, still dared to show his dissatisfaction with the accompanying team. Those weak and incapable kids. Naruko intended to call in impudently on his red face, but Hatake stopped her, saying, "He's our customer," and thereby slightly tempered the blonde's ardor. Sasuke and Sakura quite shared the feelings and desire of the Jinchuriki. While Sasuke wanted to follow the blonde's example, Sakura wanted to put it into words, because if she hit a person, nothing really would change. And anyway, if one of them pounces on this strange person, the whole team will get such people that they never even dreamed of, so Haruno, using her brilliant mind and ingenuity, decided to just stand aside and see what everyone it will end. Will these jerks accompany me? Ha! Yes, it's just ridiculous. The customer openly mocked the kids. If it were Naruko's will, she would have already kicked one spot in him, as she had imagined. But then their captain stood up for the guys. Don't look down on them. Even though they are still kids, as you said, but they are very talented, otherwise they would not have been sent on such a mission. Kakashi turned aboard, but nevertheless piercing to the depths of his bones. Look at the man, which made him squirm. Still, the customer, who, by the way, introduced himself as Tazuna, managed to convince that the guys would be able to protect him, albeit not completely. 5 people walked through a picturesque forest, over which the bright sun shone, and a clear blue sky appeared before their eyes. Sakura was walking, thinking about her own thoughts, when she suddenly heard a quiet splash, and looking at her feet, she saw a puddle. Given that the sky is clear and it hasn't rained lately, then... Sensei! Haruno managed to scream, when suddenly a hand was clamped over her mouth from behind. Stay where you are. We are not interested in you, we only need an old man, a man in a respirator and with a strange mask hissed. The symbol of the country of rain was depicted on its protector. In the heat of the fight, the guys did not even notice how one spectator was added, who was clearly in no hurry to intervene in the skirmish between the 2 heated opponents. Sakura was freed from the hostages by Kakashi, and at the moment she is standing with a kunai in her hand, so that, if anything, to protect the builder. Well, sort of, figured it out, Hatake said, tying the last knot on the loser. And who, I wonder, sent you? Hung silence. Suddenly, 2 needles, obviously created in the country of the bloody mist, flew into the neck of one, and then the second. None of the number 7 team had time to understand anything, as the bodies, as if by magic, evaporated. What's going on here? Sakura exclaimed in her heart. Sakura was tense to the max. Before her eyes, a man was killed for the first time, and this could not but frighten. She didn't think it was that serious. Clearly, there was something wrong here. So why did these shinobi first attack, in order to kill Tazuna, during which they themselves were killed? This question haunted the girl, and she obviously wanted to talk to the bridge builder, but she couldn't find the right words, and the atmosphere was too tense to bother anyone over trifles. The guys reached the water, when suddenly the bushes rustled. Well, dude. I'm going to lie down right here out of fear, flashed through the pink top of my head. Naruto threw a kunai, and who do you think he hit? In a hair. From what? He's white? In the summer, then? Sakura wanted to shout, but she was beaten to it. It's a distraction. Get down. Hatake reacted in time, because in the next second a large, no, just a huge sword flew over the heads of the team, on which a man landed. You're not that stupid. Although, nothing less was expected from the copy ninja Kakashi, right? The lips of the speaker were touched by a caustic smile, but the guys could not see this behind his mask, which hides most of his face. Momochi Zabuza, if I'm not mistaken, Hatake said, getting into a fighting stance, so that, if anything, in time to help the little genin. No, although Naruko performed missions, sometimes being on those where it was necessary to kill, but still on such tasks there were no such dangerous and experienced people as this one from the bloody mist. Uzumaki, like Hatake, understood this, and therefore she could only stand, clenching her kunai tightly in her fist, and biting her lips. The swordsman, having sealed his seal, disappeared into the mist, leaving the poor children trembling with fear, occasionally shaking their heads around in search of him. Sakura, poor girl, was nervous and sweating from her exertion. Neru did not leave, although outwardly she tried to remain calm. I don't care about show-offs, because here and now her future fate will be decided. Sasuke is shaking. Memories flooded over him one by one about how his father did not want to recognize him, constantly setting Itachi as an example and, every now and then, a big guy, they say, you are too weak. And it was at this moment that the boy really believed everything that his father said about his weakness. The mask of the guy who was cold to everyone was gradually cracking. Sasuke, a quiet but distinct voice cut through the silence, don't worry, I can protect you. All of you. I won't let any of my friends die. Kakashi's mask tightened slightly at the corners of his lips, and his eyes narrowed, and it became clear to the guys that Hatake was smiling. Well, we'll see about that, the named guest with a sharp sword burst into the formation of the guys. For Naruko, the next steps were blurry. Here the guys were thrown away from the bridge builder by a strong stream of wind. And the next second, Hatake intercepted the sword aimed at the customer, killing the water clone. And now a new Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi, chopping his body in two. But even that turned into water, making it clear that it was just a double. Now the copy ninja appeared behind the killer, starting a conversation with him that didn't last long, interrupted by the appearance of the now original Momochi behind the back of the equally real Hatake, who had already slashed the clone. Having managed to repulse the first attack of the shinobi of the mist, Kakashi jumped under the water, and immediately ended up in a water prison created by Zabuza. Now Naruko is flying from sensei to teammate standing at a distance. Sakura nervously calls out the blonde's name in a boyish manner, and Naruko gets angry. And so, the girl runs at the mercenary, but manages to overcome the anger that consumed her in time, until recently, when she is again thrown back with a well-aimed kick. The world around the Jinchuriki takes on its usual colors again, and now, she is already standing and tying the selected bandage on her forehead. I will become Hokage. And no one, you hear, nobody can stop me. Loudly spoken words as if brought Uchiha out of a trance. Then the guys took turns attacking Momochi, which confused him. Here Naru, imperceptibly for the enemy, reincarnated as a large shuriken, after which, just as imperceptibly, she threw it into her bag. After another blow, already a clone of the blonde flew off to the side, throwing a backpack to Sasuke on the move, from which he, as a result, took out two weapons. Jumping up, the Uchiha swung his shuriken and threw them with a slight difference in distance, but so that Zabuza did not notice the second one flying under the real one. The first and main, as intended, the swordsman caught with his free hand, and when he saw the second, he jumped. But even here the tricks did not end for him, because the shuriken that flew 5 meters turned into a blonde, which aptly fired a kunai into Momochi's right hand, which held their sensei in prison. He, as expected, chose the lesser evil, that is, quickly pulled his hand away. Or did an intuitive reaction work here, you can tell the hell. A little later, it was possible to watch the battle of two Dionins, who thought out their further strategy with incredible speed. From this battle, Zabuza, if he were to emerge victorious, then only with heavy losses. In this case, chance intervened in the person of a partner shinobi from the mist. Only no one immediately understood the true intentions of the masked man, which is why the swordsman remained alive. The boy, who threw the senbon very accurately, hit the points on Momochi's neck in such a way that he fell into a peaceful sleep, from which ordinary death could not be distinguished. And when he showed up in front of the 7th team, the masked guy said, "Duh, he is from the ANBU of the mist, and that he came for Zabuza." And in the next second, he was gone. Well, since it's over, let's move on, Kakashi said, taking a few steps forward. Suddenly he swayed and fell exhausted. The long-term use of someone else's Sharingan had an effect. Kakashi-sensei. The 3 genin screamed. They outwitted us, the blonde-haired boy, located on the bench in the boat opposite from Hatake, pouted amusingly. Kakashi himself was now sitting, trying to relax as much as possible. And now, Mr. Tazuna, we demand an explanation. It doesn't look like a C grade mission. It's more of a B rank mission, maybe even an A. Since you lied to us, we have every right to leave you here alone, but still, I'd like to hear you out. The bridge builder burst into tears, and Naru's eyes popped out, however, as did Sakura. Okay, I'll tell you everything, just don't leave me, and, after a brief pause, the old man began his story. And if I don't finish this bridge, I'm afraid our country will come to an end, summed up the customer, looking plaintively at the shinobi. I beg you, don't leave me. I have a family, a grandson. He was not allowed to finish. From a human point of view, I understand you perfectly, but we are also people. Now Hatake was interrupted. Kakashi-sensei, we can't leave him here to die." Uzumaki stared at Jonin with an unquestioned look. All right, Hatake quickly surrendered, "only if anything, I warned you. And now you need to rest, sit quietly." The boat moved smoothly along the quiet surface of the water, without making a single sound. Only the swaying of the grass on the shore was heard, which, by the way, was already very close. "That's it, then you yourself," the boatman, who had just landed the passengers on the shore, turned on the engine, and after 10 seconds he was completely swallowed up by the fog. Kakashi supported Naruko on one side and Sasuke on the other. At such a leisurely pace, they walked to the house of the bridge builder, where they were met by his friendly, seemingly, woman, who immediately flew in with questions, and when she saw Hatake's injury, she immediately volunteered to help. After the mentor of the 7th team was bandaged from head to toe, conditionally, of course, the hostess immediately realized it, because she had not yet fed the guests. When the guys came to the table, in addition to adults, there was also a boy in the kitchen, 6 to 7 years old, who, by the way, was quiet and taciturn for the entire subsequent meal. The guys were waiting for the first day of training, which could not be ignored. An injured Kakashi arrived with Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruko. By the way, they settled them all in separate rooms, thanks to which the blonde remained undisclosed. Sakura gave some kind of chakra control lesson, after which Hatake told everyone to climb trees without hands, after showing what exactly he had in mind. With a battle cry, the Uchiha and Uzumaki rushed at their green friends. However, after a few seconds, first Naruko, and then Sasuke, overdoing the chakra, crashed to the ground, cursing the force of gravity. Sakura was much more fortunate, and she climbed to the top on the first try. "Well done, Sakura," Hatake began, "girls have much better chakra control." He glanced at the blonde, and she, in turn, puffed out her cheeks in a funny way. "Well, Sakura and I will go to the customer, and you guys, train by." "They haven't been around for a long time," Haruno said, looking at her watch. "Indeed, they are late," Kakashi said slowly. "Who, I wonder, did we go to?" Uzumaki said, straining her voice in an attempt to drown out the creaking of the door. "You're just in time. Sit down at the table," Tazuna's daughter said with a smile. Several days flew by unnoticed. During this time, little has changed, except that the 7th team found out about the sad story of the boy, and Naru managed to quarrel with him. Everything else is the same as before. Oh yes, our star couple was able to climb their trees, breaking a considerable number of trees. Of course, Uzumaki took down more than Sasuke, about 20 trees, for which she received a scolding from Hatake and a little moralizing from the others. Naruto woke up when it was well past noon. What? Uzumaki's indignation knew no bounds. "She was abandoned here, as the carpenter's daughter said, so that you get better, and at the same time gain strength. Your mother." The blonde cursed softly. Having quickly gathered herself, the girl hurried to the exit, but that's bad luck. The windows were bolted, although the weather was hot, and therefore the girl decided to go the usual way, that is, through the door. There was a roar in the kitchen, as well as nasty male voices. What exactly they were talking about, the Jinchuriki did not understand, but it was clear that they were far from friendly. Having quietly crept up to the kitchen, the blue-eyed girl found only the rout and the roaring Inari, who had gone down the wall. The blonde ran up to him, and he only shuddered in a soundless sob. "They took Mom YY," the kid drawled, to which the Uzumaki only stroked his head consolingly. The bandage fell off the shinobi's head, and due to a bad fastening made in haste. The hair unraveled, and a pretty girl, 13 years old, appeared before Tazuna's grandson. "Why you, a girl?" the little guy asked. "Only TSSS. It's a secret," Naruko said. "Now let's go save your mom." With these words, the girl got up from her knees and headed out of the house. The enemies were standing nearby, on the bridge. Inari peeked out from behind the door, wanting to see the blonde believing a couple of swordsmen to the nines. "Give her back, you bastards!" With a battle cry, the girl jumped up so that she was directly above the heads of a couple of thugs, and, not expecting their further actions, trying to hit them, with all her dope. When the fist touched the bridge, the blonde, without waiting for anything, teleported to the body of Inari's mother, after which she moved her closer to the house, and, at the same time, to her son. Unexpectedly appearing behind the backs of the enemy, Uzumaki hit them with open palms in the back, causing them to fly a good 5 meters. In the meantime, they did not come to their senses. The girl approached them and quickly tied them up. "About the fact that I'm a girl, not a word to anyone, okay?" She winked at the brunette. "Okay," he smiled broadly. Meanwhile, a fierce battle was going on the stone creation of Tazuna, and so far, the circumstances were not in favor of the 7th team. Kakashi had already entered the fight with Zabuza, using only the kunai in his hand, while the enemy was already fully wielding his huge sword. Sasuke's was much more difficult. There was no way he could get out of the ice mirrors of Haku, who impressed everyone, including Hatake, with his skills. Sakura stood with a kunai in her hand, as if preparing to protect the builder, although her knees were trembling. Needles flew at the Uchiha from all sides, trying to hit the vitals, but Yuki constantly missed because of the brunette's activated Sharingan. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Naru came running, which Hatake and Sakura relied on. Although Haruno did not like Jinchuriki, but it was only outwardly, deep down she hoped for a blonde. Uzumaki burst into the circle of mirrors without thinking, for which she immediately received a needle in her hand. "You're well," the blonde exclaimed. "He's too fast. I can't follow him." Sasuke shared the information. Naruto thought about it. "Quick, huh?" In response to her and Sasuke rushed a bunch of needles. Uchiha somehow fought back with a kunai, occasionally noticing that the jacket was cut with a point. When the brunette shifted his gaze, just for a second, to the blue-eyed one, he saw something that he did not expect at all. Uzumaki moved, teleported, although not very fast, but enough to avoid the attack. From the outside, it seemed that she was just running very fast, but thanks to the genome of the Uchiha clan, Sasuke could see that this was not running at all. He didn't see Naruko folding any seals for this, so he was very surprised, but decided not to ask, certainly not now. Because the Uchiha was distracted, about 10 needles flew into him. Then more and more. Naru, seeing this, immediately ran to him, and then completely flopped down next to her knees, trying to pull out as many sharply sharpened needles from her comrade's body as possible, but such an alignment was just in the hands of the enemy. He threw a kunai, this time aiming at the girl's vitals, but suddenly someone blocked the Uzumaki. Uchiha fell to the ground, unable to do anything more for the blue-eyed, covering his eyes. "Why?" the blonde croaked, feeling that uninvited tears were coming to her eyes. "You're a fool, Naruto," the Uchiha said, then hung up. Fog again. This form of the nine-tailed demon fox always had a strange effect on the blonde. Part of the memory seemed to be erased. So it was this time. The only thing she remembered was that a red, familiar chakra had begun to envelop her. And then darkness. The Jinchuriki woke up when Zabuza was already flying, all wounded, away from Gato and his people. Having fallen near the body of a comrade, he tried to crawl towards Hack, and after he succeeded, he simply lay on his back. Said that he was sorry for all the atrocities committed, then closed his eyes and fell silent. All this was accompanied by laughter and cackling from Gato, who was supported by his people. Naru was furious and screamed with all her strength. "How dare you laugh at him? You are no better than him." The blue-eyed one shouted. "What can a brat like you do to us?" Raising an eyebrow questioningly, Gato took a step forward. Sakura covered her face with her hands as she sat next to the Uchiha, trying to stop her tears. She was shaking all over. Kakashi took a fighting stance. Naruko, having folded her favorite seal, created about 200 clones, and Hatake replenished their number. True, only 2, but nonetheless. Gato's men were outnumbered, and the townsmen joined the 7th team, so the opponents were forced to flee. Who had time, he jumped into the water and swam. And Kakashi tied the slowest with a rope. Thus ended the first serious mission of the 7th team. Here you are already leaving, the old man said with a good-natured smile, disappearing the guys to the bridge. Naruko Bridge. The blonde's eye twitched. The store didn't have a tea, so I had to do it in a girly way. Tazuna winked at the Jinchuriki. Fa. Naruto, you're a girl now, Sakura decided to tease the blonde, not knowing how right she was. P.F., a bit of a stupid name for a bridge, the Uchiha snorted. It's time to say goodbye. Naruko and Inari, 2 boots, a pair. As they began to roar, they flew at each other with hugs, so much so that everyone present had to jump 2 meters away so that they would not be hurt. When everyone was adequately able to say goodbye, the 7th team set off. Separately, the guys shouted farewell words and promises to see each other for a long time. A week and a half has passed since then. The 7th team was still bombarded with missions, but of such a low rank that the blonde, indignant every time, strove to break the 3rd's office. Otherwise, everything is the same. Naruko and Sasuke compete wherever possible, and Sakura tries to separate them, after which, most often, Uzumaki cuts off the bream. On one of the days after the next mission, the number 7 team was again going to disperse in all directions. Sasuke, frustrated by the fact that he was busy with small tasks, and not competing with worthy shinobi, trudged to the house, but Sakura immediately caught up with him. Sasuke, I was thinking, she mumbled softly, tugging at the hem of her skirt with her fingers, can we go home together? And you? It turns out the same as Naruto. Sakura's inner self rebelled in earnest, and Naruko tensed. Sakura, the next time you decide to flirt with me, better practice some technique. To be honest, your abilities are even worse than Naruto's. The internal Sakura was already preparing the friendship chainsaw, and the Uzumaki looked strangely at Sasuke. She was already genuinely sorry for Haruno. Hey, Sasuke. Can't you see how Sakura is trying to please you? Is it really that hard not to be rude to her? You get on my nerves. In hearts exclaimed the blonde. Hatake quickly faded away, referring to the fact that he urgently needs to give a report on the completed mission and something else. Sasuke only snorted in response as he left, and Sakura was covered with a black aura. Sakura, if you want to go home with someone, I could. The owner of pink hair did not let her finish. Naruto. Well, who asked you to intervene? Now Sasuke will despise me even more. He already considers me the weakest. The small trio watched the unfolding scene. Well, what can you do? The Jinchuriki spread her hands to the sides. It's true, albeit offensive, Sakura could no longer endure this. She rushed up to Uzumaki, and when she noticed her, it was already too late. Haruno's heavy fist slammed the poor girl into the nearest wall, leaving a small dent in the process. Naruto brother, are you hurt? Shouted the grandson of the 3rd. Pulse, pulse, Udon muttered, after which he exclaimed, no pulse. What have you done, freak? Neru got up from the ground, but immediately realized that it would be better if she remained lying. And there was something to be afraid of. Haruno, angry at Konohamaru for his angry tirade, rushed at him at great speed, waving her fists from side to side. All 4 began to run away from Sakura. At great speed, Sarutobi Jr. crashed into someone. Look, Temari, what little kids are running around here, someone in a dark suit said in a haughty voice. I'm not involved in this, the girl with the wheaten hair tied in 4 ponytails replied. Kankuro, let him go, she sighed, turning her freckled nose up. Would like to have a little fun before they tell us what to do, said Kankuro, as the fan-wielding blonde called him. Let him go. Naruko shouted, but receiving only a familiar grunt in response, she rushed at the enemy. as Sakura had already christened him. The stranger released several threads of chakra to the ground, trying to cling to the boots of the Jinchuriki, but she quickly cut through his idea, after which, directing the chakras of her leg, she pushed off the ground and kicked, aiming at the chest of the opponent. However, it didn't hit. The blow did not go through because of Temari, who put up a barrier in the form of that huge fan. Even though she said she wouldn't interfere, helping a friend is more important. A stone flew into Kenkuro's hand. "Did you forget something not in your village?" Sasuke asked, sitting on a tall tree and leaning back against it. "Come down, let's check. I hate jerks like you. Especially the ones that show off." Kankuro leaned forward. "Kankuro, stop," the third Sangenin ordered in a low, insinuating voice, as evident from his bandage. "I certainly knew that the Sand Village and the Leaf Village made a pact, but I didn't think that any member of the Sand could freely spend on the streets of Konoha." "Who you are?" Haruno asked a little angrily when she saw Temari's gaze directed at the Uchiha. "Yes, you really don't know anything," a note of laughter sounded in the voice of the girl from the sand. "What should we know?" Uzumaki inquired ingratiatingly, narrowing her eyes. "Here is the entry visa." Sabaku no held out her hand, in which hard paper with a photograph of the owner was sandwiched between her fingers, and there were also some small inscriptions. Sasuke jumped from the tree after a strange descent through the sand of a strange guy with red hair. "What is your name?" the red-haired Uchiha asked, turning his head in his direction. "Uchiha Sasuke." "And you?" responded Brunette, and the answer followed immediately. "Dog no Gara, but then." Me. Ask me." Naruko yelled, getting everyone's attention. "It's not interesting," Gara chuckled, after which, turning his back to the seventh team, he commanded, "Temari, Kankuro, let's go," and in the same quiet voice that penetrates to the depths of the soul. "What a horror," Sakura whispered, pressing her small fists to her mouth. "Gara, then," the Uchiha said thoughtfully, rubbing the back of his head with a wide palm. It was an ordinary sunny day. On the bridge erected over a small river, 3 people gathered, representing the 7th team almost at full strength. The exception was Hatake, who, however, as always, was in no hurry to arrive on time. Naruko and Sasuke again did not share something, for which they raked together. Yes, you heard right, Sasuke also learned a good portion of scolding from Haruno, who, by the way, was on edge since the very morning. Her palms were constantly sweating, and her eyes were nervously darting around, obviously looking for someone. Sakura seemed to think that they were brought together to deliver some bad news, given the latest destruction on the missions. Hatake, as always, was late. He was immediately attacked by 2 of his students, Naruko and Sakura. Because of the screams, quiet excuses from sensei were barely audible, like, "A black cat ran across the road, I had to go around," and stuff like that. "Kakashi, he's also in Africa Kakashi. But, we got away with something. I meant to say that all of you were selected to participate in the Chunin exams," Hatake said, clearing his throat. "What are we?" Sakura asked with wide eyes. At the moment, she looked like a frightened rabbit. "Chunin exam?" Sasuke clarified, bringing his dark eyebrows to the bridge of his nose. He wanted to compete with Naruto's strength, as well as prove that he was no worse than Itachi. "I'll become a Chunin." Naruko jumped for joy, waving her arms in all directions, and occasionally touching her teammates with sensei. "Naruto, be quiet. Is it okay to be silent sometimes?" Angry Haruno, trying to calm the restless Uzumaki. "Don't fret, Naruto. You look like a child," the Uchiha interjected. Quiet. "So. Here are your recommendations," Hatake handed the guys white, slightly crumpled pieces of paper. The genin took a piece of paper with a photo of each of them on it and looked closely. There was all sorts of crap, for example, rules that everyone wanted to spit on, or instructions that, in principle, are also on the side of everyone. What should we do with them? The blonde asked, slightly waving the paper up in her hand. Nothing special. Just fill them out and hand them in to me, Kakashi spoke. Oh yes, it's up to you to take the exam or not. In other words, Sakura began, straining her brain, we cannot participate. Hatake nodded, and this will not affect the team in any way. Kakashi shook his head, which meant a firm no. Good, the green-eyed one drawled, I will think. The team began to slowly disperse. Kakashi vanished with a light pop and puff of smoke before anyone could blink an eye. Others followed his example. Naruko immediately ran away on business, leaving Sasuke alone with Sakura, but the latter was so busy thinking about the exam that she forgot to think about the Uchiha standing next to her. But they are still children. Gave an argument against the participation of Iruka-sensei. They are already ready, Hatake summed up calmly, putting an end to this conversation. Sakura walked along the road, still thinking about the exam, convulsively clenching her fists, and a little later, unclenching. Hey! Sakura, the voice made the girl shudder softly, do you want to take a walk? Haruno turned her head and saw Sasuke sitting peacefully on the bench. Sakura shook her head from side to side, putting her hand to her forehead. Realizing that there was no one around, she stared at the Uchiha and then, starting to speak, pointed her index finger at herself. Are you me? Well, of course. So are you coming? The Uchiha asked. Yes, of course, let's go, Haruno replied in a trembling voice. Sakura, don't participate in the exam, it's too tough for you. I'm worried about you. Sasuke said, and Sakura blushed instantly. Sasuke-kun is worried about me? Yeah, I thought about not participating in it myself, Haruno said. There were a lot of kunai in these too. Sakura, watch out. Sasuke exclaimed, but he was immediately pierced by 1,000 kunai. Sasuke Noet. Sakura yelled as a stranger stepped out of the shadows. He used the illusion technique, but Sakura, thanks to her brilliant mind, quickly figured it out. I'll participate, what were not worth it. Her voice faded into the darkness. All three passed the primary exam, Iruka said in the guise of an offender of the three genin. You see, you were afraid, Kakashi replied, flipping through the pages of the book. Yeah, I underestimated them. They really grew up, Yumino drawled good-naturedly, scratching his head. The seventh team gathered, with the exception of Sensei outside the Shinobi Academy. Sakura arrived last. She looked at Sasuke strangely, remembering past events, and when the Uchiha asked what was the matter, she quickly lied that she simply did not get enough sleep. Entering inside the building, the eyes of the guys opened up a huge crowd heading to one office. When the seventh team got closer, the genin were able to see everything much better than from afar. At the 301 office there were two boys who, by force, could be given 14 years. On their headdresses were protectors with the sign of foliage. They themselves were dressed in the same type of gray suits, gray trousers with tapered ends, t-shirts, most likely, also gray, as well as a cape with long sleeves. Narrowed at the waist. One had hair in the form of a simple brush, and the other, on the contrary, neatly gathered under a hat. One of them, who was more tidy, pushed away a girl with brown hair, who, in his opinion, ran into a fight. The brats have nothing to do here. The guy with strange hair said with a haughty smirk, looking a little contemptuously at the crowd. Second Sasuke, the thought flashed through Uzumaki's head, after which she began to squint at the Uchiha. Hey. Don't confuse people. The brunette objected, stepping forward a little, while giving himself the opportunity to examine himself. Sakura, you are the best in our team to understand such things. I'm guessing you've noticed too. Sasuke-kun praised me. You, although Haruno managed to invent a lot, she didn't show it. Of course, I noticed, notes of arrogance sounded in her words, this is only the second floor, not the third, so this is not 301 rooms, but only 201. Can you remove this barrier? Whispered in the corridor. What is she talking about? Some asked, barrier? Others wondered. You really didn't miss. The guy with the fancy haircut rushed at the Uchiha, who, in turn, raised his leg to strike. However, neither the first or the second did not get where they wanted. The blow was interrupted by a guy who, a minute earlier, missed hundreds of the same swings from an unknown boy. The guy who stopped all this farce was dressed extremely strangely, and he looked appropriate. Resinous thick hair was cut under a pot, eyebrows, the same color as the hair, were suspiciously wide, and his eyes, they were strangely rounded, with sparse eyelashes, and the same as the eye, round pupils. The clothes were also not the most ordinary. She was a bright green bodysuit, tight-fitting the whole body, a bandage fastened at the wide waist, a bandaged knee, on which rested a small bag, the same as on the belt. Lee, it was you who suggested not to show your strength before the exam. A brown-haired man stepped forward a little, with a gray tint in his eyes, vaguely resembling Hugo Hinata. Naruko stared at him, he looked too much like her friend. The eyes are the same, the Jinchuriki flashed through his head. You will still have time to measure your strength, the thick-browed guy began, but then his gaze settled on a pretty person with pleasantly pink hair. He slowly released the fighters, and with a tense gait went exactly to Sakura Haruno. My name is Rock Lee. You are Sakura, right? Asked the guy in the tights, nervously swallowing the lump slowly rising in his throat. Yes, the girl drawled suspiciously, gradually starting to shrink under the gaze of a strange shinobi. Let's meet? I will protect you until death, he minted, showing class, and at the same time exposing his smile of 32 snow-white teeth. Sakura squealed. Better back off. You are chubby, she said in her hearts, and the Uzumaki just shook her head in sympathy for the boy. How lucky she is that she is not a boy and is not in love with Haruno. Although these were strange thoughts, but what are they? Meanwhile, another guy called out to Sasuke Uchiha, the same brown-haired guy who stepped forward. What is your name? Before you ask someone for a name, you should name yourself, the Uchiha retorted, as if looking down on a representative of the Hyuga clan. Are you a newbie? How old are you? Niji decided to recoup, but this time the Uchiha did not answer the way the guy had expected. I don't have to answer, do I? What? Niji said with a hint of anger, frowning. The brown-haired woman, standing nearby, was softly touched, pressing her fist to her cheek. So much like Sasuke-kun, Sakura thought. The girl blushed slightly, but immediately dismissed all thoughts, filling her head with the fact that the Uchiha was the very best, and the only one with whom she was destined to live hand in hand until the end of her days. Naive. But now is not about that. Me. Ask me my name, the blonde climbed forward, but was immediately stopped by a sharp remark from Hyuga. Not interested, the Uzumaki, dejected and inflated, returned to her original place. Waiting for what would happen next, but nothing interesting happened anymore. The green-eyed lady grabbed her two teammates by the arms and, chirping merrily, led them forward to the third floor. Don't pull, Sasuke said irritably, walking forward, slightly pushed by Haruno. People almost dispersed from this corridor, leaving only memories of them in the face of a stuffy room. Lee. Let's go, the owner of the rare genome of the Hyuga clan rapped out a little intermittently, in his usual manner. Go. I'll catch up with you, the guy answered calmly, slowly turning 180 degrees, we need to finish something. With these words, he walked away from the guys from his team, shaking his hands back and forth. Tenten and Hyuga Niji turned around in the same way, only in the other direction and walked with unhurried steps where they needed to. Hey you, with evil eyes. Lee called out, leaning over the railing. You said to introduce yourself before you asked the other person's name, didn't you? He asked, leaning his right hand on the iron structure. In the same second, throwing his legs over a kind of fence, he was at the bottom. Then I'll introduce myself. He cleared his throat, pulled himself up a little, and stood up, clenching his hands in fists. Rock Lee. Are you an Uchiha? If I'm not mistaken, Sasuke? The black onyxes of the owner of the Sharingan carefully studied the strange boy, and his eyebrows almost closed on the bridge of his nose. That's right, Sasuke chuckled, ceasing to scrutinize the boy who had practically challenged him so closely. I want to fight you, but first. He hesitated a little, turning his face towards the surprised Sakura, after which he began to shoot with his eyes, in an attempt to attract her attention. He did just that, but Sakura screeched around the closed room, trying to avoid the gaze of Doom, who had already bothered her. He's really dangerous, be careful, Sasuke, Haruno yelled in a slightly bass voice that was not at all familiar to her, addressing the Uchiha along the way. He, in turn, clenched his fist, and his eyes narrowed in defiance. Wait a minute, the Uzumaki stepped forward. This is my chance to make myself a complete fool and clumsy. Well, how else to show that I'm a stupid shinobi? Oh, she took up this game herself, leave this fat-browed one to me. The blue-eyed girl exclaimed self-confidently, straightening the bandage, if we have 5 minutes, I will have time to do it. It wasn't. Naruko ran to Rock, but he didn't budge, only bent his elbow and held out his palm in front of his face. I'm not interested in you, Lee said, deflecting 2 of the Uzumaki's blows with ease. Once a hook, and now the blonde is already flying head over heels into the wall, and when she collides with her, she makes a dent, applying another part of her chakra so that the whole would be more impressive, because of which Sasuke would have to fear the thick-browed one even more. This only proves once again that you are not my rivals. Lee began slightly haughtily, raising the corners of his lips, but then he turned serious. It only means one thing, which is that I am the best genin of all, and you definitely can't beat me. Sasuke took a fighting stance, already looking forward to defeating the annoying and at the same time strange shinobi, and Sakura, looking at her watch, began to panic. Sasuke, don't. We need to be in time for the reception before 3, we don't even have 30 minutes left. Haruno turned her worried look to the Uchiha. A shiver gradually pierced her body. Naruto, although a dunce, is also capable of something. And this lead defeated him in a matter of seconds. Sasuke may be cool, but still, I feel uncomfortable. Don't worry, the genin grunted, I'll do it in 5 minutes, and rushed to Rock Lee. Sasuke jumped, bringing the fist of his right hand to strike, and as soon as he brought it closer to the face of the enemy, as he disappeared from the Uchiha's field of vision in the blink of an eye, ending up behind him. The brunette crouched, avoiding the attack with his foot, but from the guy in the green tights, a second blow immediately followed. And again with his foot. Just before that, Rock made one seal. Sasuke placed a block, intending to repel the blow, but everything happened differently. The Uchiha received a strong kick in the face and was already flying away from the black-haired ninja. Sakura nervously called out the name of the Sharingan bearer, clutching her trembling fists to her chest, shaking slightly in fear. But he is not the strongest among the genin of all the villages, one must assume. What then will happen next? This question did not give the pink-haired girl peace, but now she was forced to focus on the ongoing battle. The Uchiha stood up, nervously raising his eyes, burning with the red fire of the Sharingan, at the enemy. Well, let's get down to business, Sasuke said haughtily, taking advantage of his opponent's slight confusion. No wonder Lee was a little confused, this was the first time he had seen the scarlet eyes of the Uchiha clan in action. Sakura was jubilant, foolishly hoping that the brunette would be able to unravel the technique of the shinobi she hated, at the moment. And Sasuke again ran to the enemy. Sasuke-kun is getting stronger and stronger right before our eyes. Clearly the Uchiha clan. Well, of course. Sasuke-kun shouldn't lose to people like him. As soon as Haruno finished her mental monologue, Sasuke again snatched rock off his feet. But what about the Sharingan? Frustratedly noticed the green-eyed girl, shifting her gaze from Sasuke to Lee, and vice versa. And Sasuke was wondering how the Sharingan couldn't help. What kind of technique is this that even the Sharingan can't discern? Like this. My technique does not belong to either ninjutsu or genjutsu, the guy was already openly beating, if I may say so, Uchiha, my technique is just taijutsu. There was a rustling in the corner, and after that the guys appeared Naruko, who got up from with the help of the one leaning against the wall. Sasuke, this is so sudden that you probably find it hard to believe, the Uchiha swung for a blow. Oh you! Even if you saw everything with your own eyes, but your body is not physically prepared and you simply do not have time to react. And you can't do anything about it, Rock Lee stated the fact. Naruko accurately noticed that the guy was serious, and because of this, she might have to intervene, which she would not like to do. Once again, Lee launched an attack, slamming Sasuke into the floor. It seems that this was his signature number, which he perfected more than once. But then a much more serious technique followed, due to which the Uchiha could even become disabled, but Naruto was at her peak. A little more and she would have rushed into battle, but then none other than Turtle? The three genin exclaimed while he was talking to her. Guy, please. The turtle exclaimed, and then, out of the smoke on its shell, another man appeared, suspiciously similar to Lee. Naturally, the seventh team immediately started discussing him, his eyebrows, his hairstyle, for which they received a look full of indignation from Lee. Suddenly, the older one punched his little copy in the face, causing Rock to fly a good distance away. The seventh team in the drop. Guy, with tears in his eyes, said. Lee, you. Sensei. I. Both of them shed tears. Lee rushed to Guy with a hug, and he only began to chant the power of youth. The seventh team was just trying to move away from the shock at the sight of these two. The faces of this trinity are simply impossible to describe in words. Hey. And they look good together, the Uzumaki retorted, giggling and covering her mouth with her hand. Idiot. It's too dangerous to talk like that. Sakura fumed, remembering what the greasy-browed one had done to Sasuke. Speaking of Uchiha. And how could I lose, here? To this? The brunette's eyebrow began to twitch nervously. Come on, run 100 laps to the setting sun. Master Lee said. That's right, Sensei, exclaimed his apprentice, after which a brilliant smile lit up both of their faces. Yes, they advertise mint-flavored Colgate pasta, the Jinchuriki said, but Haruno's small but extremely strong fist landed on her head. Further actions took place quickly, and before the guys had time to blink an eye, Guy had already evaporated in a cloud of smoke, wishing good luck to his unlucky student. Sasuke-kun, observing the rules of etiquette, Lee began, in the end I want to say something else. In fact, I came here to see what I'm capable of. And I just told you a lie. Unfortunately, the most powerful genin in the village of Konoha is one of my team members, not me. Sasuke tensed, and I will go out to the duel in order to fill him up. Besides him, you are also one of my targets. Prepare well for the exam, and, with these words, he jumped up, over the railing, and ran away. So what happens, Naruko began, so the Uchiha clan is not so cool after all. What are you talking about, you bastard, Sakura snapped, but the Uzumaki politely ignored her. Crap. Shut up. Sasuke was angry no less than Haruno, but the blonde was ready for such a reaction. Next time I'll fill him up. Despite the fact that I blew him dry, right? The Uzumaki turned away in disappointment. What are you talking about? Haruno said in an angry tone again, but her speech was ignored by the blue-voiced one. But then Uzumaki looked into Sasuke's eyes filled with anger and extreme displeasure. You saw his hands, the blonde continued more calmly. The Uchiha stepped back, every day. Every day. Even more than you. This alone speaks volumes. Naruko did not let up, not paying attention to Sasuke, and his desire to hit her, but as hard as possible. I think so. Sasuke could not stand it anymore, and, as sharply as possible, turned around to avoid seeing Naruto's importunate face, but immediately pulled himself together, snorting. It's getting more and more interesting. The Chunin exams are ahead. The Uchiha lit up with fighting spirit. From whom did he pick it up? Well, let's go. Naruto? Sakura? Yes, in one voice exclaimed a couple of the above. And so, the whole trio of Team Number 7 go forward for new adventures, ready to meet anything on the path to becoming Chunin. The group of genin made it to the third floor without incident, leaving themselves to Kakashi's view. By the way, Hatake was sitting on the windowsill and reading his book, of vulgar content, well, where without it, Jiraiya wrote after all. You all came, the Jonin asserted rather than asked, getting up from the window. Well, to be honest, I didn't expect. The man looked around the group of 3 people, Sasuke, Naruto, and even Sakura. Now you can officially apply for the Chunin exam. What does it mean? Hirono asked, guessing what sensei would say next. Sasuke listened with half an ear to their conversation, mentally imagining the people he wanted to fight. And Naruko, in turn, knowing what Hatake would say, putting her hand to her mouth, yawned sweetly. I did not want to let you take this exam, the captain honestly admitted, closing his eyes, mentally rolling them. Sasuke and Sakura were confused. What does it mean? Moving away from the shock, asked Hirono, looking at her mentor in anticipation of an answer. If I had just said that only a team of 3 people was allowed to participate in the exam, then Naruto and Sasuke would have started to beg you to participate. Kakashi opened his eyes, looking at the students. Ask you Sasuke to participate, you would be without any for a good reason agreed. But since you are here of your own volition. Hatake fell silent, not knowing how best to continue, but then spoke again. Sasuke, the brunette closed his eyes and grinned. Naruto, the girl smiled at all 32, and Sakura, Hirono smiled shyly, and a slight blush covered her cheeks. All of you are admitted to the exam for the title of Chunin. You are a team that I am proud of. Well, let's go. The blonde-haired man exclaimed, and in front of Team Number 7, the doors to the large hall swung open. Finding themselves in a large room, the guys were confused and frightened because of several dozens, if not hundreds of pairs of eyes staring at them. Who was not there? There were both representatives of large villages and small ones. Shinobi gathered here from the leaf to the sound. Are you also taking this dreadful exam? Drawled a lazy voice, forcing the entire 7th team to turn around in unison and contemplate its owner. It turned out to be none other than Shikamaru Nara himself. After that, quiet slaps of shinobi shoes on the floor were heard, and now Kakashi's team opened their eyes to Ino Yamanaka, who brazenly hung on Sasuke. Hirono immediately ran to them and tried to unstick the blonde from the guy, which she later succeeded in, though not without some difficulty. They immediately began arguing about Sasuke's belonging to each of them, giving super-duper mega weighty arguments that, according to the Uzumaki, were not worth even her little finger. A little later, Chuji joined the guys, and then the Kurenai team. I see, it means that all 9 beginners pass the exam this year, Kiba Inuzuka said with a sitting dog, Akamaru, on his head. I must say, this Akamaru is the sweetest creature. So white, and so fluffy, soft, just wow. Hinata Hyuga immediately clung to Naruko, which earned a very ambiguous look from Sakura, but the Jinchuriki put her hand on the shy girl's shoulder, saying, "Don't pay attention," and Hyuga immediately became calmer. 3 rookie teams were talking so noisily that they didn't notice a 17-year-old boy who had crept up, apparently. He had long blue hair tied in a low ponytail. Round-rimmed glasses sat over brown eyes, accentuating a straight, unblemished nose. Thin lips were compressed into a half-grin, showing superiority over the kids. KHM, He cleared his throat, attracting attention. You should have been quieter. Are you a fresh 9 newcomers who have just left the academy? He was interrupted. Who are you anyway? Showing off here. Yamanako Ino was famous for her talkativeness and quarrels with Sakura. She was the source of the sound. My name is Yakushi Kabuto. You'd better look around. You see those guys? He nodded his head at the angry to hell crowd, which the children disturbed with their noise. These guys are too tense before the exam, so I don't advise you to make them even more angry. The teams fell silent. Kabuto-san, is that your name? Sakura asked. Receiving a slight nod of her head in response, she continued, so you, too, for the second time? No, Yakushi answered with a sigh, and the guys pricked up their ears, waiting for the continuation. Already in the 7th, Nara rolled his eyes. So this exam is such a difficult obstacle? That's because they got stuck, Shikamaru drawled lazily, turning away. Sharing information with the cute newbies or something, Kabuto suggested, narrowing his eyes. He took out strange yellow cards, while continuing, through these special cards. They allow you to see information about a specific person. These things react to the owner's chakra. In other words, a person who takes these cards without a handout from the owner will not see anything. For example, he put his finger on one of the pieces of paper, and it spun, revealing information. Wow! One of the guys exclaimed, and what does she show? Here is all the information about the Chunin exam participants, Kabuto briefed the crowd. Can these cards show personal information about a person? Sasuke asked. Are you interested in anyone in particular? Yes. Dog no Gara from Sunagakure, as well as Rock Lee from Konoha, the Uchiha named the names. Oh, so you even know their names. That will be even easier. Let's start with Rock Lee. A painted card appeared under Kabuto's finger with information about the Green Beast number 2 in Konoha. So, the young man began, 1 year older than you. Experience in completing assignments, Class D, 20 times, Class C, 11 times, Squad Leader Guy. During this year he has improved his taijutsu incredibly, but everything else is bad. Last year, he was swept up as a capable rookie genin, but he didn't enter the Chunin exams then. Like you, this is his first exam. In the same team with Tenten and Hugo Niji, everyone silently watched this spectacle, along the way memorizing information about the newly minted opponent. Next Dog no Gara, team number 7 tensed, experience in completing tasks, Class D, unknown, Class C, 8 times, Class B, wow. Genin, and already the task in rank. He is a shinobi from another country, especially a new one. There is no more information about him. Genin, and already a Class B assignment, and didn't even get scratched. Shikamaru interrupted who was talking. What kind of fruit is it? Uzumaki, who had been silent until now, gave a voice. She was shaking with laughter coming out. How sad to see Naruto like this, Sakura thought, deciding that the Uzumaki was shaking with fear. Well, nothing. I'll try to cheer him up. The girl went from behind to the Jinchuriki. Naruto. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am the future Hokage, and I will definitely not lose to you. The girl exclaimed, to which Kakashi, standing outside the door, only smiled. What is this idiot doing? Ino ran into Sakura. How should I know? In tone it responded Haruno. The atmosphere gradually became oppressive, and members from other vicious villages grinned. What are you talking about? Sakura, flying up from behind to Naruko, performed a hold, squeezing the Uzumaki's thin neck. I'm just telling the truth as it is. The blonde exclaimed indignantly. Gentlemen, this is just a joke. He is so stupid. Please don't pay attention, he's like that, talking like a child, Sakura retorted, trying to disperse the oppressive atmosphere. You see, because of your talkativeness, I had to apologize to everyone. I'll throw it out the window next time. Pink-haired indignation knew no bounds. Kankuro lowered the puppet rope from his shoulder, but Gaara's hand stopped him. "It's not worth it," only the red-haired boy managed to utter, as a roar resounded throughout the hall, and the place, near the swamp-colored wall, was covered with a smoke screen. "Sorry for being late. The first part of the Chunin exam is now open, and I'm your examiner, Ibiki Marino." Kankuro lowered the puppet rope from his shoulder, but Gaara's hand stopped him. "It's not worth it," the red-haired boy only had time to utter, as a roar resounded throughout the hall, and the place, near the swamp-colored wall, was covered with a smoke screen. "Sorry for being late. The first part of the Chunin exam is now open, and I'm your examiner, Ibiki Marino. Now everyone comes up to me in turn, hand over the forms, and in exchange receive such a number." Marino held up a piece of paper with the number in his hand, showing it, and sits down in accordance with it in a certain place. As the crowd settled, Ibiki began explaining the exam itself. "So, now the test will be carried out." Many were dumbfounded. To prove his words, one of the examiners standing next to Marino shook a heavy stack of forms. Many grabbed their heads. "Your same mother!" Sasuke and Sakura exclaimed at the same time, glancing at Naruto, who was sitting a few seats in front. Everyone was stuffed at random. Damn it. Even though I was in the ANBU, this is unlikely to help me much, although, with the help of logic, I might leave. Damn it, thought Naruko, looking around nervously. "Naruko," Hinata said timidly from her right hand. "Hinata, wow, what a relief," the Uzumaki breathed nervously. "Silence!" the chief examiner exclaimed menacingly. The rest of the examiners sat around the perimeter of the auditorium so that only the back part was empty. "I will now explain the rules of the exam, so listen carefully. You won't be able to ask questions afterwards." "Rules? You can't even ask questions." Sakura flashed through her head. "The first rule, initially each of you is given 10 points. There are 10 questions on the sheet. Further, for each wrong answer, points will be deducted from you." "Well, everything is clear here." The second rule, the result depends on the total score of the whole team. Sakura hit her forehead on the table, Sasuke turned an evil look at the Jinchuriki desk, and Naruko began nervously shake your knees. Yes, once she was able to answer well, and even more than it was necessary in the lesson, but then, on the contrary, she mentally dragged the team to the bottom. For the sake of it, of course, but still. The next, no less important rule: if the examiners notice attempts to cheat on someone, then 2 points will be deducted from you for each gross mistake. This means that, perhaps, there will be people who will be removed from the exam even before summing up its results. So. Okay. Calm down. Okay, Naruto, but Sasuke and I can definitely handle it. Nothing to worry about, Haruno reassured herself. Even if Naruto gets 0 points, Sasuke and I will save the day. And one more thing, Ibiki continued sharply, if one of the team gets 0 points, the entire squad will be disqualified. What? What oh? The Uchiha and Haruno exclaimed. They are already thirsty for my blood, the Uzumaki swallowed. By the way, the chief examiner once again interrupted the thoughts of the participants. The last question will be dictated 45 minutes after the start of the exam. The time of the exam is 1 hour, the second hand stopped at the number 12, and the hour hand, between 3 and 4. 3:30, let's start. The situation seems to be dire. Naruto, please, not 0 points. Sakura thought. Damn it, Naruto. It looks like he suddenly became scared, the Uchiha thought, looking from the sheet to the Uzumaki and back. Bad business. Well, what do we have here? Yeah. Here are the questions. Stop. The Jinchuriki stammered in her own thoughts. What oh? What the fuck? Such questions are too complex for Genin. Something is wrong here. Uzumaki put her index finger to her chin, mentally remembering all the rules. So. Noticed cheating, -2 points. Noticed cheating, -2. Stop. Usually they get kicked out for that. Yes, the questions are not easy. Just don't say. They want to make us write off, just don't get too hot, Sasuke mused. This exam is designed not only to test our own knowledge, but also the ability to collect information, Naruko summed up. If we consider that this exam is with the emphasis on getting the right information, then somewhere in this audience there is a person, or people who know all the answers, Naruko and Sasuke simultaneously flashed through their heads. At this time, many have already resorted to cheating. Gaara transformed the sand into a third eye and was already fully copying from the guy sitting on the left side of Sakura. Temari glanced nervously at Kankuro, who in turn looked at the puppet sitting next to him as an examiner. Tenten and Lee were running a complex operation with mirrors. Shino had the help of his Kakachu. As for Sakura, she already wrote everything herself, and Ino, brazenly taking advantage of this, was transferred to her body. Hinata and Niji activated their Byakugan and Sasuke activated his Sharingan. Kai beckoned to little Akamaru. As the Uchiha turned his gaze to the Uzumaki, his eyes widened to his forehead. They sat and she frankly showed that she had nothing to do. At first she poked her finger into a pencil, and then, with her hands behind her head, she began to sway easily in her chair, occasionally bringing her hand to her mouth when she yawned. What is this stunner doing, let me know? Sasuke thought. During these 45 minutes, an impressive number of teams were kicked out. So, there are 15 minutes left. Now for the last question. But before that, I would like to say one more thing. There is one more rule that may make you feel desperate. First, you will have to choose whether to answer this 10th question or not. Disapproving whispers were heard. What does it mean to choose? What if I refuse? What then? Exclaimed the angry Kunoichi of Sand. If someone decides not to answer, then his score is automatically equal to 0 and he, with the whole team, drops out of the exam. Indignant exclamations were heard. What does all of this mean? Of course, everyone will decide what to answer. Heard from the crowd. In addition, there is another rule, another rule? Enough already, Sakura's inner self was indignant. A person who decides to answer, but answers incorrectly is forever deprived of the right to take the Chunin exam, Marino informed everyone dryly. What nonsense. Many have passed this exam many times already. Kiba's angry speech was interrupted by Ibiki. So you're out of luck. Because this year I decide. In the end, you do have a choice. You can leave now and try in half a year, or you can answer. But if there is some risk in the second, then if you are not confident in yourself, I advise you to choose the first option. The main examiner finished his speech, waiting for raised hands. The hall was gradually emptying, but nevertheless there were still enough people, 78 people, or 26 teams. I can easily answer, but Naruto, Sakura thought. Naruto, why don't you raise your hand? What is he doing? An image of a cheerful boy voting to become Hokage popped up in her mind. He kept repeating like crazy, Hokage Hokage. Forgive me Naruto, it looks like I don't want to crush your impossible dream. Forgive me. With a sad smile, Haruno slowly pulled her hand up, but after looking at the Uzumaki, she stopped. Naruko held her hand up, exposing herself to the examiners. But, in the blink of an eye, this very hand was on the desk, and the sound of the blow echoed through the audience. Don't test me. I'm not afraid. I'll answer it even if I'm a genin for the rest of my life, I don't care. Because I, thanks to my own perseverance, will still become Hokage. Remember it. I'm not scared at all. And, pouting incomprehensibly at what, crossing her arms over her chest, the girl flopped back into her seat. Hinata turned to look at her happily. Well, this fool never thought about us, so I refrain from commenting, Sasuke thought. Well, yes, I recognize you, and your recklessness, Naruto, Sakura thought with a smile. I'll ask again. This is the choice of your whole life. If you've changed your mind, now is the time to say something, Ibiki asked sternly. I don't change my mind so fast. This is my shinobi way. Uzumaki exclaimed, lifting the mood in the audience. Everyone who knew Naruto had the same thought in their heads, now we will recognize you, Naruto. What an interesting fellow. Rather, a girl. Heard about her. In an instant, dispelled the doubts of all these guys. 78 people. So there is more than I expected. But if I don't leave them behind now, it won't change anything, Ibiki thought. The examiners nodded one by one, and a minute later, Ibiki Marino nodded. You made the right decision. So, to everyone who is here now, I have to say that you have passed the first stage of the exam. On this note, the story ended.